Good morning. It is 6:16 on Tuesday, December 17th, 2019. It is 34 degrees, and we're grateful for that because there's not ice on the roads here in southern Westchester. It's going to get up to 35 today, but we will continue to have rain all day. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. Our top stories this morning as we get rolling: snow, sleet, and freezing rain are messing up travel, mostly north of 287, but nonetheless, the rain is continuously heavy, very dangerous driving out there. Please drive carefully. Our other top story: former Mount Vernon City lawyer Lawrence Picari is guilty on corruption charges. That frankly was a surprise. Also in Mount Vernon, a cop is out of a job after body slamming a handcuffed prisoner. And the Interfaith Council in New Rochelle, well, they called New Rochelle School Board tone deaf. This is a story we did 2 weeks ago. The mainstream press just catching up with it, but we have some commentary about that. And we actually posted on the Journal News website last night because of it. And in football, and we're going to football because the local sports were quiet last night, except for the Rangers. Drew Brees, he breaks all the records. Welcome to Good Morning West. Oh boy, I almost gave my old title. Well, welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. Kind of the same show, just in a different locale and a little more unplugged. The weather this morning is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And so we go, it's 34, getting up to maybe 35 today. But nonetheless, extremely dangerous and icy travel north of 287, northern Rockland, Orange, and Putnam. Rain will be deceiving in these areas, freezing on contact with surfaces. So again, if you're north of 287, and some of the temperatures we're looking at here, 30 degrees, 29, around the dew point of 32, it's kind of dangerous. So please look out for sleet and ice pellets. Temperatures will gradually warm above 32 here in southern Westchester. It's already there, and in southern Rockland. So please, though the rain down here is very difficult, and there's so much rain that as you drive over the hills and over the streets, the reflection, even in the water and the amount of rain, is very deceiving, so please be careful. Now, tonight, partly cloudy. The temperature will be 28. The wind will be out of the northwest, 10 to 20. Tomorrow, finally, it's mostly sunny, pardon me, with a few flurries. The temperature, though, 35. The wind 15 to 30 miles per hour. And as we look into Thursday, still more sunshine through the high thin clouds. The high will be 25. The overnight low, 17 degrees. Friday, sunny. The high, 31. Saturday, partly sunny. The high will be 38 degrees. And indeed, that's the top story this morning as well. Once again, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. The news this morning is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Kahn, and Plug In Virtual Reality. Our top local story: Mount Vernon's former top lawyer was found guilty Monday on corruption charges for steering $365,000 in city water funds to criminal defense lawyers of then Mayor Richard Thomas and a public relations firm hired following the mayor's 2018 arrest. This in Lohud and News 12 today. The jury convicted Picari of first-degree corruption or corrupting government, second-degree grand larceny, defrauding government, and filing false statements. Picari, the Mount Vernon Corporation counsel from January 2016 until this July, faces a minimum of 1 to 3 years in prison and the loss of his law license. Westchester County Judge David Zuckerman scheduled sentencing for March 4th. The verdict came after the jury sent notes to Zuckerman on 3 occasions since Friday that they were deadlocked. The third, at around 11:30 a.m. Monday, indicated that our time is being used unproductively and that there wasn't a single charge they could agree on unanimously. Now, over an objection of the defense, Zuckerman read the jury a so-called Allen or deadlock charge, urging them to continue deliberating, not to give up their positions, but to search their conscience to see if they can reach common ground with their fellow jurors. 3 hours later, they found Porcaro guilty on nearly every charge, and all the jury deliberated about 9 hours over 3 days. Defense attorney Stephen Lewis said he was tremendously disappointed by the verdict and that his worst fears about the deadlock charge were realized. And a comment about the deadlock charge here by the lawyer. It's coercive, he said. It tells the jury that basically you've given us 3 notes for a hung jury, but we want you to go back there and start all over. I think they were afraid that they were going to be kept there for an extraordinary long period of time, and the people who had conscientious feelings that were being advocated in the jury room, I think, folded. He said it was too soon to tell whether that would be a basis for any motions to set aside the verdict. And Porcaro, you will recall, was the city's corporate counsel when he was indicted alone in May after the state attorney general's office investigated the mayor's reliance on public money for his personal use. Now, one of the things that came up is that Mr. Porcaro didn't benefit from the money, and it was concluded that benefiting from the money was not in and of itself something that was exculpatory. So more than likely that's going to be appealed. I think that, well, it seems to be selective prosecution. That's just a comment, though. So much more was going on in that city, that letters to the attorney general, letters to the comptroller of the state of New York, one unanswered, as did pleas. So we shall see where that goes. The press should be very responsible on this one. Anyway, Porcaro guilty, scheduled for sentencing on March 4th. While we're in Mount Vernon, a rookie Mount Vernon police officer has resigned after he was confronted about a video showing him body slamming a prisoner who was handcuffed and shackled. The Westchester District Attorney's Office is investigating the November 4th incident in which Officer James Reedy lifted up the prisoner outside Mount Vernon Hospital and threw him down on his head, so says the story in News 12. Reedy and his partner filled out the required use of force forms afterwards, but there was a delay in the department obtaining surveillance video from the hospital to confirm what was reported. Once the video was seen by Internal Affairs, it became clear that Reedy's actions were more severe than he had claimed. This next story out of Lohud, again, the comments about the letter at the heart of the story are a couple of weeks late, but nonetheless, an interfaith group's rebuke of the New Rochelle Board of Education's hiring of Laura Fejo as superintendent has led to an unusual spat over the direction of the school district's embattled leadership. The Interreligious Council of New Rochelle said in a November 26 letter to the board that Fejo's hiring was the, quote, epitome of being tone deaf or to our community's needs, unquote, and that the council considered itself, quote, newly deputized. Wow. So the religious folks are watching over us now to monitor Fejo's performance and, if necessary, renew calls for her dismissal. Rabbi Scott Wiener, president of the council, an established and visible group of clergy and lay leaders, said the letter was approved unanimously in separate votes by its executive committee and board. And they went on to say that they represent the diversity of New Rochelle, no matter how you slice it, even politically. So it's no small matter that there is such a unanimity in our voice. Wiener, the senior rabbi at Temple Israel. Now, he was, of course, referring the tone-deaf part to Fejo's participation in a $90 million reverse discrimination lawsuit. The school board president, Amy Mazzelli, though, on November 27, emailed a response to Wiener saying their position was, quote, premature, unfounded, ill-advised, and ill-informed. Good for her. And that she was surprised that the IRC did not engage with district leaders in a different manner. Now, without getting into all of this and the Interreligious Council, actually, to get into it no more in commentary and explanation, we're going to talk about this when we get off the phone. He was, and many people felt this, that perhaps because Mr. McLean, who is a Minister McLean, I should say, is a member, or rather leads the NAACP here in New Rochelle, and is one of the most strident antagonists towards Ms. Fejo, that perhaps his presence as the number 2 on the board led to that conclusion. Rabbi Wiener is discounting that. Now, I did, and I'll mention it later when we get done with the news, one of the very few times I posted a comment on the Journal News website, and it called for one. I did an editorial about it about 2-3 weeks ago, and I'm going to continue my position. And it's simply this, that for a group that is following the precept, or at least considering the fact that the agenda being run by that group called the Collective is mostly based on the fact that a white person cannot be the victim of racism. Since the Interreligious Council is following that view, then that makes them kind of agenda-driven as well, perhaps. But more importantly, I found it ironic that a religious group, rather than giving this woman time to see how she does in the job, of all groups to do this, quite remarkable, was prejudging her. And prejudging her and also questioning, in effect, whether or not she has the right to defend herself, which every American has the right to do, which is when you mix religion with politics is what you get. We have laws in this country. And I would welcome anyone to come on. So Mr. McLean has been on. He's a friend, although I don't think we do agree very much on this issue. We may on some parts of it. He's welcome to come on. Rabbi Wiener is welcome to come on. Any member of their board is welcome to come on. And if they wish to say that, hey, you know, this was a difficult time to hire someone who done that, there is a bit of truth to that. But if she truly has, in fact, truth is what it is, and there's never a bit of truth in something. Perhaps it wasn't the most, shall we say, politically correct or mood-tempering decision. This woman has enormous integrity, and integrity is going to come to us with a price. She has been all of her career a liberal without being all the way over to the, shall we say, Carranza side of the fence. And if you want the Carranza if you want the Carranza attitude here in New Rochelle, then the Interreligious Council should come out and say that. If the Interreligious Council, though, on the other hand, feels that individuals don't have the right and that they're going to declare themselves some sort of a hangman judge, which was the tone of their letter, we'll be watching you. That's very discomforting. But I welcome them to come on. I realize that their intentions are well placed. But once again, I think they need to take a hard look in the mirror and ask themselves why they are prejudging someone. So maybe I went ahead and did that anyway. Very troubling story, that. Okay, more than 175,000 people voted in Westchester County's general elections this year, a 60% uptick in turnout from the last comparable election year. The 175,000 plus 300 voters is 65,000 more than 4 years ago, and by far the most this century, when there were no federal or state political races and not even a marquee countrywide race. County Board of Elections figures showed this. Before 2019, more than 110,000 people voted in a comparable election only once. So we are seeing turnout. And I guess that's one of the good things coming out of the Trump and the whiplash era. Here's a kicker. We call this a kicker because after the news depresses you, we try and brighten you up. A man delivered a Christmas miracle early here in New Rochelle by saving a beloved dog who was hit by a car here. James Gallagher says he was working at the Honda of New Rochelle Monday morning when he saw that Cindy Revletto's dog, Charlie, was hit by a car on Main Street. This out of News 12. He says he took the dog to 2 different emergency clinics where they discovered that Charlie suffered neurological and spinal injuries and needed emergency surgery. My God, look at this. The bills were over $14,000. Rivalda says her family faced financial setbacks and couldn't afford to save him. Gallagher said without giving it a second thought, he offered to cover it. He's not asking for a single penny back. Charlie is out of surgery and will be covering in a clinic for about a week. We will find this James Gallagher, and wow, we will thank him. I mean, maybe there's a GoFundMe page or something that we can do to ameliorate his costs. But what a nice thing for Mr. Gallagher to do. All righty, we're going to take a quick break. It is 6:32 for the traffic and weather, and then No, the traffic's not coming to 1-1 weather. And then we'll come back with some regional stories, some national stories, open up the phones, and more. Right now, it's 34 degrees, getting up to 35. Remember, it's raining heavily across the Sound Shore right now. It is torrential in some spots. There's some minor flooding. And when I say minor, it's even more dangerous. You hit it, you don't see it. The blacktop is very shiny. The lights are making it very difficult in the headlights to get around in the dark, so please be careful. Up county, you have to worry more about the fact that the temperatures have dropped below freezing. There's some ice, there's sludge, and in the further northern areas, there is snow that sticks. So it will end, all of it, by the end of the day once you get through your commute today. But tonight, partly cloudy, the temperature 28. Wednesday, mostly sunny with a few flurries, 35 degrees. And Thursday's when it gets cold. Sunshine through high, thin clouds, the high 25, the overnight low 17 degrees. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. The bottom of the hour brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Khan, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. Also, the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. And we move now into some of the sports, and this was a hell of a story. Only two football stories in a row. Drew Brees, and I have it here, but trust me, I have it. Yes, Drew Brees now has the most touchdown passes in NFL history. The New Orleans Saints quarterback came in to Monday night's game against the Indianapolis Colts, needing 3 touchdown passes to break Peyton Manning's record of 539. Brees connected on 2 touchdowns in the second quarter to tie the record. In the third quarter, he broke the record on a pass to tight end Josh Hill. Brees now has 540 passing touchdowns in his 19-year career. His team won 34-7. Again, 540 he's done it. The most TD passes in NFL history. Now, he's 41, I believe, around that. We've got Tom Brady, who's 43. Eli's going to be 39 in a week or two. And we are looking at the end of an era of a certain type of quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger's in that class. We'll be waving goodbye to most of them in the next couple of years. And, of course, saying hello to the likes of these other individuals, Lamar Jackson, and, of course, my favorite, Patrick Mahomes. And I only say my favorite because, well, he is. And the Rangers lost 5-3 last night. We'll be talking a little bit about that. Actually, 5-2. They gave up 2 goals in the empty net part of the game. They played very well, but they got pushed around. And I didn't see any of the game, but I read some of the accounts late, and I saw some of the news articles this morning. They've got a couple of guys on the roster that's supposed to keep that from happening. We'll see if they were playing and if they answered the bell. It's a tough game sometimes, but boy, they certainly were pushed around, and by a team not noted for that. Okay, let's get to the regional news. Hundreds of people gathered in Jersey City yesterday to honor and mourn the detective who was gunned down last week while in the line of duty. Detective Joseph Seals was shot and killed December 10 in a Jersey City cemetery by 2 people who then went on to kill 3 more inside a Jewish grocery store. As authorities continue to investigate the attack, Seals' friends and family are remembering the 40-year-old, my God, father of 5. He'd been a police officer for 14 years. He helped to get guns off the street, was a detective that others looked up to. He lived in North Arlington with his family. A vigil was held there Sunday evening. A funeral mass will be held at 10 o'clock today at St. Aidan's Church in Jersey City. The controversial green light law took effect in New York yesterday, allowing undocumented immigrants to apply for driver's licenses. New York is now the 13th state in the country, that allows undocumented immigrants to obtain driver's licenses. Security guards at Yonkers DMV say the lines, which stretched all the way around the block Monday morning, were much longer than usual. Boy, God. Lord help anyone over at Motor Vehicles. The new green light law allows undocumented immigrants to apply for a driver's license without a Social Security card. The state now accepts foreign documents to establish identity. We'll be talking about that as well. A new grant has been given to the Sarah Lawrence Center for the Urban River at Bezac, Becksack, so that it can expand its studies of water quality issues plaguing the Sawmill River. Ryan Palmer, the director of the center, also called CURB, says every spring and fall he and his team test water samples from 16 sites across the river. And let's look at some of the national stories and other stories that are making news today. For those of you who are Yankee fans, yes, indeed. Mr. Cole, Jarrett Cole, arrived in New York City yesterday. He says he's thrilled to be a Yankee, but bummed he needs a shave and a trim. That's right. The Yankees, as you know, one of the few faceless, or rather hair-free teams in baseball. But for $325 million, I would shave every hair on my body, the eyebrows, eyelids, those little hairs that sometimes grow on your back of your, the upper part of your fingers over here. I would do that. And for you hockey fans of other teams in our region, Taylor Hall, the trade sweepstakes ended yesterday with the Devils shipping the former MVP to the Coyotes of all teams for draft picks and 3 prospects. So they didn't get much. Well, they got a lot of prospects. That's 2 draft picks, 3 prospects, 5. In return for their superstar left wing and minor league center Blake Spears, the Devils received a first-round draft pick in 2020, a conditional third-rounder. First round is good. In 2021, that could become a first, along with center Nate Schnarr, right wing Nick Merkley, and 6'7", 230-pound defenseman, a monster, Kevin Ball, considered by many to be a top prospect, headed to Newark, but is still far from making the NHL impact. Now, the Devils are also retaining 50% of Hall's current $6 million cap hit, which is prorated just over $3.5 million. The third-round pick in the deal is to become a first-rounder if the Coyotes, currently in first in their division, win a round in the playoffs. Wow. Okay. We're not going to get into the rest of this, what happened with the Rangers getting their butts kicked last night. We'll try and figure that out. Now, as we get into national news, and as everyone knows, the Senate will, or rather the Congress will vote. It's going to be along party lines, we know that, on those 2 counts to impeach the president tomorrow. Now, here's how impeachment will work once that happens. There's an announcement each morning to call the proceedings to order. It begins, hear ye, on pain of imprisonment, everyone must remain silent. That's going to be hard for these senators. Senators ask questions by passing notes to Chief Justice John Roberts. Senators can vote to change any rule they want, but all that is based on the trial of Andrew Johnson. It's some antiquated stuff. But again, the Founding Fathers put very few rules together for this. It is, at the end of the day, it's going to rest on the understanding of the offenses or alleged offenses at this point by the president, and whether or not, even if they agree with what is he's accused of, whether or not they rise to the level that would require impeachment. And there's really no law book for this. A lot of it is political, and the Founding Fathers wanted it to be, and a lot of it's going to fall into the conscience and the goodwill of the United States Senate. Now, whether they be Democrats or Republicans, it's so hard to imagine these people, and how sad is it to say, voting for the good of the country and with the gravity and the sacredness that it ought to require. But then again, that's why the Founding Fathers left it wide open. If it's not really a clear and present danger and above the pale, they're not going to do it. Now, what Mitch McConnell does not have is 51 votes. CNN's Phil Mattingly had a piece on the latest in negotiations between Republicans and Democrats on a Senate trial. The key line is this: with 51 votes, McConnell can do most anything he wants in the looming Senate impeachment trial. But at this stage, McConnell doesn't have the commitment, or at least 51 of the 53 senators in his conference, to do anything yet. That means what happens next and the extent of Schumer's leverage right now, they are still on low. Now, there are many that believe that Democrats are making a big mistake. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wants new witnesses so Democrats can relitigate the merits of this case, Many Republicans have heard enough. Senator John Ernst of Iowa, Republican, put this line of thinking very well. Quote, this is a political exercise. Let's just get it over with, unquote. Schumer has a wish list of witnesses he'd like featured in the Senate impeachment trial. Funny thing, they're all the witnesses House Democrats decided not to pursue earlier in the year in their effort to move this quickly. And we all know them, John Bolton, the White House Chief of Staff, and two other operatives from the White House. Now, why didn't they wait? California Adam Schiff and Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee decided to push forward rather than wait for the courts to compel people. And minds are not being changed. On the other hand, given that nothing in the impeachment testimony, despite credible testimony from career public servants, appears to have changed a single Republican's mind, there's some logic to Democrats' strategic thinking to get on with things, say some. And then courts, of course, do take forever. Now, Giuliani was heard from yesterday, confirming testimony by diplomats at the impeachment hearings. Rudy Giuliani, in comments to the New Yorker, tied the ouster of U.S. Ambassador to the Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, to his efforts to dig up dirt on the Bidens. He said, quote, I believed I needed Yovanovitch out of the way, unquote. She was going to make the investigation difficult for everybody. Now, pulling Yovanovitch from her position is not among the impeachment articles, but Giuliani's admission certainly plays into the larger narrative about his and Trump's pursuit of investigations to hurt his political rivals. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump more than doubled the number of false and misleading claims, this according to one poll made this year, to more than 15,000. Although I think we need to be a little fair about that. I'm sure that's true, but I'm sure every president he goes into the thousands on that one. Okay, one more story that goes into the international realm. And this came as a shock. All these different things that are going on. It's 6:44 here on Radio Westchester, 34 degrees, cloudy, raining heavily across the Sound Shore. Is that with the impeachment stuff going on, Eli Manning running around playing a good game, and all the things going on locally, I don't know how this got under the radar. It seems like just yesterday that the military ruler Pervez Musharraf of Pakistan was the main major domo over there. But listen to this. Former Pakistani president, military ruler Pervez Musharraf has been sentenced to death in absentia for high treason following a 6-year legal case. A 3-member special court in Islamabad on Tuesday convicted him of violating the Constitution. Ooh, they were rough. They don't just impeach there. By unlawfully declaring emergency rule while he was in power in a case that had been pending since 2013. The 76-year-old former leader, who has lived in self-imposed exile in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates for more than 3 years, has the option to appeal the verdict. Musharraf seized power in a military coup in 1999 and ruled Pakistan as president until 2008. It's the first time in Pakistan's history that an army chief has been tried and found guilty of treason. Under Pakistan's constitution, high treason is a crime that carries the death penalty or life imprisonment. The special court ruled on the death sentence by a 2-1 majority, with one of the 3 judges not backing the sentence but agreeing to a conviction. Again, Musharraf has been living in Dubai since 2016 after Pakistan's Supreme Court lifted a travel ban allowing him to leave the country to seek medical attention. And if every leader used a state of emergency, didn't we do that to build a wall? Declared a state of emergency to claw power. There'd be no leaders left on the planet, I am afraid. All right, let's look at what's coming up today. And I did want to talk about a vagrancy issue, but I think I'm going to wait until we get our first guest of the day. Vince Russo, we're going to get him early. We're going to try and get him at 7 o'clock. Mike Edelman's with us at 7:20. You'll love his conversation. Some of you love to hate him as well. Mike Duffy's with us at 7:35, and we've saved some stories for him. The one-punch sleigh gang problem. Students now welcoming cops, and the aforementioned stories regarding impeachment, etc. Del Husler from the Yonkers Insider joins us, and A.J. Woodson at 8:35 joins us as well. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. We're broadcasting live right here from the train station. We are going to take a quick break. We're going to open up the telephones, and then we'll come back with a little bit of a monologue and see what's on your mind. You can reach us at 222-3141, 914-222-3141. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone here on Radio Westchester. You can listen live on RadioWestchester.com. You can also go to the MyTuner Radio, and our app is there as well. And we're getting our first call, and we're going to take them on in a moment. First, this. All righty, let's take a look at our sponsors. Are going up towards 7 o'clock. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Con, Dominic Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this very complicated issue involving the school board and the Interreligious Council. I've always loved the notion of and supported the Interreligious Council for years. That's not going to change. They do a lot of good work. I just disagree with them on this issue. But I go back to the days of Rabbi Amel Wall, whom I absolutely adored, who formed the Interreligious Council. And I guess there's always been this dance that the Interreligious Council and clergy have with the public and the law. We see it on the national scale with the hard right, the Catholic Church, the issue with Muslims, and of course, anti-Semitism across the world for the last 2,000 years. We see some countries want a theocracy. Sometimes we border with our politics on having theocracy lead our way because our values are Judeo-Christian. But the Founding Fathers were very clear on that separation. Now, some have even suggested that the Interreligious Council weighing in on this is a breach of separation of church and state. I don't know about that. That may be too far. But the concern I have is their premise. Now, let's take a hard look at it. And don't turn your heads away. We have to deal with this. Because of what happened in our schools last year, because there is some racial tension in our town. But again, you have to look at where the racial tension is coming from. A lot of the racial tension was exacerbated after the murder of Valerie Schwab. And even though she was the victim, it was exacerbated because, at least as our view is, there were concerns by people on the left that there would be some overreaction. And there never was, even though it was a black-on-white crime. It was a student-on-student. Even the harshest conservatives in the city did not consider it a racial incident, but it was made into one. And then we had the issue of the way the schools were managing bad behavior. And it kind of came out, and people lost their jobs over it and everything else, that they weren't enforcing the closed campus, largely because they didn't want to have to report numbers of bad behavior. It looked like, and the people that called our radio program, some off the record and some of the school guards, that wasn't egregious bad behavior, but it was consistently egregious instances of bad behavior on a more or less regular basis. And then this whole issue of restorative discipline and really uber progressive ways to deal with it. And that's all debatable, and it's all well and good. But an agenda evolved out of that was borrowing, in the view of many, way too much of the New York City philosophy that this was all the result of white supremacy and white racism, and we need to re-educate ourselves and go to re-education camps. Now, is there white privilege? You betcha. And that's something that the left is certainly welcome, actually left and right, to combat and to put in perspective and to have people learn. But when Fayho was chosen, yes, was it a little tone deaf? Would it have been better? Would it have been timid? not to hire the most qualified person because she was neither black and or because she had a lawsuit insisting on her own rights. Now, that's the premise. And a lot of the rhetoric that went on, and now it can't be pulled back, is that, well, a white person has no right to do that. Who says? And right away, when you define that, when the law permits it, when every single one of us who are citizens of this country, and even many not, have the right to sue another or a group because we've been wronged, I just knocked down one of my easels. Whose right is it to say or to decide what racism is? To rewrite the dictionary, to rewrite Webster's, to come up with a political version of it? She has every right to do that. You may not like it. Again, was it probably the best time to hire someone in the midst of that? It probably wasn't perfect, but if she was the best person, then it's a courageous move to put her there, and we should judge her on her merits. And the tone of the letter that we'll be watching, we'll be waiting, is threatening. It's hovering. It's looming rather than being constructive. Who were they trying to please? What is the agenda out there? Now, we'll take that on. If your belief is that a white person cannot sue for bias, hey, we're here. We welcome all callers. I mean, I skew to the left, but this is one of those times, and I wrote this in the piece yesterday, I will not do what some Republicans are doing, who will tell you off the record that this president drives them nuts and they wish he wasn't there, but they've got to support him. I won't do that. And as someone who skews left on many, many issues, I will not stand by and allow a group, no matter how pressure-filled it is, no matter how politically correct it is, and a group that I would love to be liked by, I won't bend until you convince me otherwise. I won't not speak up. This is an agenda-driven issue. And we may, in the process, I hope she stands tall. And if she turns out to be no good, if she turns out that she's just all a gas bag, which I do not believe, I'll be the first to say it. But how do we not give Fayho a chance? It makes no sense. Well, it does if your agenda and your definitions, which you have chosen to construct, or one has chosen to construct, if those definitions are going to hold sway, then fine. So, but although there was a bit about that piece that troubled me, it's like three weeks later they came out with this. So I don't know why they put it in the paper now, but everybody's going to be talking about it. And I already did one of the few times I posted on a newspaper's website. I'm disappointed that a clerical group, a group of clerics who teach us every Sunday in church, every Saturday in temple, every Friday in temple, in Sunday school, in everything else, not to prejudge people. And here they are, prejudging perhaps the most qualified superintendent that this school district has ever had. All right, we go to the telephones. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. Good morning. Oh, goodness, they must have hung up waiting for me to shut up. But that's how we roll. That's what we do. Let's see if we can get them back. Okay, good morning. Good morning, you're on the air.
I'm sorry I couldn't take your call at this time, but if you...
Okay, that we had somebody, that's obviously Anthony's voice. He was trying to get in. I don't want you to know what his phone number is. But Anthony, you can feel free to call us back. It is 6:55. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. We do have someone else we wanted to get a hold of a little earlier today. We didn't get a chance to call him. Let's see if we can wake him up. Because we have our 7:20 guest, which I did not move. Hopefully he's up. He's not going to like it because we're making him get up early. We're making him get up early. So let's see if he's there. Good morning. Before we didn't answer yet. Good morning, come starshine. All right, he'll know enough to call back. We are going to, again, the phones are open, 914-222-3141, 914-222. There's another item in the news today that we'll be asking Mike Duffy about. The Supreme Court ruled yesterday that they will not change the laws regarding homeless people. And that is indeed troubling. The High Court declined to take up an appeal of a ruling by a court of appeals for the Ninth Circuit covering the western United States that homeless encampments are a de facto constitutional right. which is why you see all those homeless people in San Francisco and Seattle. Now, I knew this man would call us back. We wanted to get him early today to get his take on issues of the day. Good morning, Mr. Russo. Did we wake you up? Oh, no, this is Anthony.
Try again.
No, okay. Well,
Try
we got
again.
no. It's Anthony. Yes, sorry. We did. I just wanted to finish my blabbermouth. What's on your mind, and what's your take on the interreligious councils beating up? How does a religious group prejudge people when they teach us every Sunday not to?
Before I get to that, Bob, the reason I called was you had a call yesterday about a piece that the mayor put on his blog about getting the same percentages of votes from the north end and the south end.
Yes.
Okay. I just want people to understand that the devil's always in the details.
Of course.
And 99% of the times, these posts are usually political, and there's no exception. In that, the details that's in here are that the quote Mason-Dixon line, north-south line, the mayor decided to make Mayflower Avenue, as opposed to Eastchester Road, which when we voted for the library tax, the new tax, they told us that the children's library was the epicenter of the city.
That's
so we
interesting.
moved the line south further. That's number one. Number two is, while he may have gotten technically the same percentage of votes, what he didn't put into his article or post, I should say, was the percentage of people, A, that are eligible to vote using his dividing line, and B, the percentage of actual people who voted in those two separate equations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's absolutely tainted, because we know that there are probably about 3 to 1 more registered voters in the South, but yet it's probably 3 to 1 more people voted in the North.
So it's apples and oranges. I did not realize, and thank you for that they moved the so-called dividing line to Mayflower. That's interesting.
Yeah, and believe me, and you know, I'm not picking on Mayor Bramson.
Oh no, it's a separate issue. Yeah.
He is totally adept when it comes to this redistricting. I'm sure he used those programs to figure out where he had to move the line to get it to say what he had to say. And I'm not criticizing him. I just want people to understand how the process works.
Very interesting. From East, but folks, for those of you who don't live in New Rochelle, essentially, if you were to draw a line on one street and say on one side is gray and the left side is blue, and they're a mix of both, well, the line was moved a couple of blocks to the left. That's interesting. What about now? Why do you think this interreligious thing bothers me so much? Am I losing my mind?
No, because it bothered me from day one even more. Okay, everybody's looking past her qualifications. Okay, and I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what political stripe you're from. I don't care what religion you choose to worship. Anyone that's walking the face of this earth can be discriminated against.
Yes. And they have a right to defend themselves. And look, I've already said this. My point is that when you get someone with a lot of integrity, boy, it comes with a price. And I'm hoping she fulfills, I have high expectations of her, but I just wish they would have given her more the benefit of the doubt. And perhaps they will. I don't know. I welcome them on. No one's perfectly fair, because we all have our biases, to use that word. But I'll let anybody on with any point of view try and convince me, talk at me, yell at me, confront me, just as someone is a peg in the ground. Why is it? We had Bob Cox on a week ago, and it was one of the most revelatory interviews I've ever benefited from. I don't know if you heard it, Anthony, but he was talking about some research he had done, and that, yes, it's very helpful to have an African American or another person of color at certain grades for the students to see and to identify with, and that's a wonderful thing. But later on, it doesn't matter very much, and certainly at the administrative level, it matters less so. So while I understand that they want to see more people of color in the schools for those purposes, and you know, this one flabbergasts me. It really does. But
You know, we're talking about education here, Bob.
yeah, I know.
So I really don't understand why color of the skin has anything to do with it outside of being qualified. Now, I fully understand that they didn't follow through on a policy that they had stipulated, but it's not a binding policy. It's not something that would eliminate her from continuing to serve, and that's evident because they could file all the lawsuits they want; they're not going to be upheld. That's the bottom line. This is more a matter of trying to pressure her out and then getting the school district to buy her out, which would be very costly to the district, as is what happened with Coach D. If you notice the settlement, it was 2 years' salary within about 3 months. So, you're talking $300,000-$400,000. And then when you factor in the benefits and the added retirement, it's a lot more than that.
You know, it's funny. In many ways, this is like relationships on all levels. This is about power. This is about a group, the collective in this case, and allies of that group, or at least allies for this purpose. This is about power and about getting their way, for good or ill. And that power, if people believe in this superintendent as I do, they need to meet that power with a stiff spine and a goodwill. That's all.
Bob, when the example they're setting, okay, opposing her based on her race and her lawsuit, sets a horrible example for the youth.
Yeah, it sure does. Thank you very much. Thank you for the call, Anthony. And I'm sure we'll talk more as the day goes on. That's from Anthony. 914-222-3141. 222-3141. We're going to be talking with Vince in a little while if we can wake him up, which is so mean of us to do. But that's what we do, We try and get people on the phone. As we come up on the top of the hour, here is what we have. There we go. Yeah, I knew he would call. He's going to be all kinds of annoyed, but let him. Good morning. You're on the air on Radio Westchester.
Good morning. It's Vince Russo.
Good morning, Vince. We called you early today because we didn't get a chance to move. You're going to be our regular 7:20. We're moving a few things around, but we wanted to get you at 7 today. So thank you for joining us.
It's good to be up this early.
Trust me, I don't have any soft spots for waking people up early. Oh, my goodness. Hey, oh, God, where do I begin to tell the story? So the impeachment goes through tomorrow. And where do you think, the Democrats have taken a real risk by moving forward without getting those other the people who could testify more directly about what the president did. But I think one of the reasons they're doing it, and I wanted your reaction to this, and it came out in the research we did this morning, but this falls under their header of no amount of proof makes any difference. Because if the Republicans have decided, and this is their right, that having made this quid pro quo deal is not an impeachable offense, why get more people? Let's just get the story out there and move on. How do you feel about that?
I think, well, unfortunately, that's the case. And I think that people like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham need to recuse themselves from these proceedings.
Why is that?
Because just like any other juror, if you've made up your mind before you hear the evidence, then you're not qualified to hear it. So if you go to
I want you to hold it right there because I want you to expand your commentary on this. So maybe we should have everybody on the Supreme Court recuse themselves because we give them hypothetical cases before we put them on the court.
Well, that's always been a bug in my bonnet.
It should be, yeah.
If they come before the Senate to be confirmed, and someone says to them, how are you going to vote on an abortion case, on a gun control case, whatever the specific issue may be, the answer should be, I have no idea. I haven't heard the case.
Thank you.
But that's not what happens, because these people want to say, I'm only voting for a guy who, when one of these cases comes up, is going to vote the way I want it to be adjudicated. And it's not the way it's supposed to be. The same thing with the with the impeachment. I mean, it's supposed to come before the Senate in a theoretical world where they say, okay, well, what is the evidence? And they analyze the evidence, and they say, well, we think it is, warrants removal or not. But when you go in and say, we've made up our mind, and it's the same thing on the Democrat side, because Democrats have already decided that it does warrant removal. So I don't know how you can do that. I mean, I don't know how the process could be put forward without that.
Although
but
I
it's
think,
a shame, because but you know what? In Watergate, we saw the same thing in Watergate, except when the overwhelming evidence, when the tapes showed that Nixon did conspire to cover up the event, even the Republicans came around and said, yeah, you know what?
well, isn't it a sign of the times, though? We have been evolving since Watergate, since Vietnam. And this, again, this president is the one in the dock now, or will be. But we've been evolving in America to winning only matters, cheat if you have to. I mean, even the president uses it in his vernacular. He calls people he doesn't like losers. And we accept that because that is the society in which we live. Very few people, with the exception of Bernie Madoff, who have been accused of wrongdoing on Wall Street, they're still rich people, and they're still revered, and they're still feared, and they're still reacted to. We are about John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. I'm talking about their characters, not the men themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And it's evolved to that now. I mean, if you can steal and get away with it, well, you do. That's what we've done, and that's what our politicians on both sides are doing now. Everybody games the system. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's true. I don't either, and I think it comes from a complete breakdown of civility across the whole society.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, things that Trump has said in the boy, Bob, I tell you, in the morning my brain is not.
I'm sorry, I'm telling you, I know that.
In the campaign, I mean, the things that he said in the past would A, be unthinkable. People wouldn't say them, and B, if they did say them, they would be eliminated immediately. And yet we take them now as
the norm. Oh no! What's happened is this constant uncivility among all of us is now. In other words, it's so every day that it's very hard to react anymore. People are numb to it.
Yeah.
I thoroughly agree with you. Hey, did you happen to see? I was hoping you did. I was otherwise engaged. Did you happen to see the Ranger game last night?
No, I didn't. I was at a council meeting.
Oh, yes, Mr. Counselor. We're going to be talking about that soon. No, I just was hoping you did because I saw some snippets of it. They outshot the other team, but they lost. But they got bullied. I saw some of the... I saw stuff that if I was the coach, I'd have probably cleared the bench. There were two guys beating up on one Ranger who was down by the side of the net. Nobody jumped in.
Nobody did anything.
You cannot, folks. Please, I know I sound barbaric, but hockey is one of those sports. It's like international politics. Once you get outside the borders, none of the rules that apply to internally apply. And on the hockey rink, when two guys are beating up one of your guys, you've got to do what you got to do. And I would have cleared the bench, or at least had a 5-on-5, and then tell the commissioner to go screw himself for having cowardly referees, which they often do. So.
Yeah, and I think they've watered down the game. I mean, you can't check, you can't.
Well, not last night. Last night they almost killed the Rangers, and since the refs won't call anything, you got to take matters into your own hands. You do. Just like, in fact, let me ask you about this. Let me get you into trouble, which I'm wanting to do for myself. No. One of the things that always gets me in trouble is my stance on violence against women. I mean, it happens to men, but violence against women in relationships. The law has been very weak in helping women because of the nature of the law. And it puts men and women of goodwill who want to protect the women in their lives in the position of having to break the law to save lives. And I know this is awful. And the only time my old radio station almost threw me off the air was because I see, now I can talk in innuendo. I can even be more deliberate, like saying a hole in a man's head that has lead in it is a good solution. But I shouldn't say that. So, but when a guy has beaten your daughter once, assuming that you've given him the proper correction, or maybe he walks funny for a while. But if he does it a second time, he's going to do it a third. And if he does it a fourth, he's probably going to kill her. And my thing is, why wait? You know.
Well, I agree with you.
No.
It's funny. We had this discussion one time at our Bible study. You know, Monday morning.
Oh, this is great. You had it in Bible study, so I'm not so bad at all, am I? Go ahead.
Well, the pastor and a few of us get together on Monday mornings. We read some passages from the Bible, talk about them, and then she uses that as a basis for the sermon the next Sunday. And somehow it came up where someone said, and this had nothing to do with the Bible. This was just general conversation. And they said, oh, when I was a young, this was a woman, and she said, when I was younger, I was stalked and this and that, and went into these details, and finally they were able to get out of that situation. And I looked at them and I laughed, and I said, people who aren't Italian, just baffle me. They said, why? And I said, well, see, because if it was me, I would have had somebody visit that and convince them that what they're doing was not a good idea.
See,
and the pastor looked at me like, oh my God.
No, and it's look, I know it's awful and I know it's harsh, but yet I'm so tired, and I was always committed to this. I mean, I can put my cards on the table. As you know, the first board I was ever on, when I was so proud to be, it was in Jersey City, called the York Street Project, and we had, I mean, this place was just wonderful. It was for battered women and their children. Mm-hmm. And we put them up. We gave them a place to live, gave the women high school, had daycare for the kids, got the women homes when we repatriated them, and got them jobs and social service. But I can't take any credit. I was just on the board, one of many, and it was run by this group of nuns. This one woman, and I'll always remember her name because it's the same as the business, Ann Taylor. She could have run a corporation. And the only rule we had, and this in that case was, you can't contact the guy unless he's been certified by some professional as well. And you cannot contact him. If you do, you're out of the program. Because a lot of it is because of the way we have treated women in society, and they're supposed to be subordinate and glad to have a man, blah, blah, blah. That's why we did the story yesterday I'm going to be talking about in a little while. Yet another guy, another boyfriend and he wasn't even the father of the baby mama. He tortured the kid. He beat the kid with pipes. He put the kid in cold water. He beat him with a stick until he killed him. And the woman stayed with this guy. Yeah. So you got the underlying social issues. But at the end of the day, now, if anybody needed an injection of lead, there was a dude. And I know it sounds terrible, and I sound like a vigilante, but we can't. The law's got to do a better job of protecting women who are stalked and or beaten by men.
That's true, but I think it needs to start earlier too, because I think one of the things that we need to teach and instill in young people, and it's boys and girls, it's not just one gender, and that is, my grandmother used to say, you can't change the spots on the leopard. So if you are with someone and they are a knucklehead, and I'll use a kind word, don't think that you're going to change them. Don't think that they're going to act any differently because you're married, because you're whatever. They're going to act like that no matter what. So if you make good choices from the beginning,
Well, yes, of course.
it alleviates a lot of these difficulties later on.
Well,
And a lot of it has to do with self-esteem and stuff like that, and how society kind of puts their mores on people, and especially women, because I think you're right. Women have always been taught that they're second class and they got to do what the guy
even
says,
in the
and
best
blah,
of
blah, blah.
instances, in my church, they're revered at the same time they're subordinated. It's what a paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting when a mutual friend of ours, his daughter got married. At the reception, he got up and thanked everybody about participating in the marriage and all of that, and he said, the only thing that I take exception to is when the pastor said, "Who gives away this woman?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, first, she's not mine to give away. She's not property. He said,
Well,
but
that's a
secondly,
tradition. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I would never give away my child.
Yeah. You got that right.
I'm celebrating the fact that she's married and, our family is extended. But, and so that's the way women are looked at. It's like chattel.
Well, yeah.
So,
but I did like the idea of a dowry, though. No one ever gave me a dowry. I would like a dowry. Somebody to give me money. Look, you want to buy a kid?
Here's a goat.
Hey, wait, no goats and money. Hey, look, I got 2 daughters. What do I hear for this one? God, it's just But women are coming along. We're gonna have a women president sooner or later, and the country will be better for it. But anyway, listen, great stuff. And we got one more minute before I go to my neck. Oh yeah, there he is. But how are things at church? Hello?
They're very, very good.
No.
We're anticipating Christmas coming up.
Gee, that's a shocker, huh? And you guys, it took you a while to figure. But guess what? I heard the change. Christmas is next week, Bob.
Well, this is Advent. This is the new beginning, and
okay.
We're anticipating that. So we had a good discussion. We read the passage in the Bible this week about how Mary conceives the baby Jesus, and how Joseph reacted. He wanted to dump her.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, no, I used to do something on night radio that I'm not ready to do here, but it's a comedy skit about when the angel came to Joseph and said, "You got to do the right thing." But we'll do that for another day. Not at Christmas time. They'll be circling the radio with torches. It's black humor. But all right, listen, thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Bob.
Vince Russo, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. All right, we're going to go to our next guest, the man many of you love to hate, but that's what makes it so much fun. The best part of it is that he's a Republican political analyst.
I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Please, oh, no. He's probably going to call back. He knows I do this. He's probably still leaving me a message, but I got so wrapped up in my last caller. Let's see.
Mike Edelman?
No, come on, Mike Edelman. Let's do this. I'm sorry that I didn't get you. We'll try him one more time. He'll call again. All right, it is 7:20. You're listening to Radio Westchester. We are the radio station at the train station. The show is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. It is 34. It's actually dropped down now to 30. Hopefully it won't turn to ice here. But that's up in Poughkeepsie where they take some of these numbers. Our numbers are a little closer. They're 34. So we're going to go with what we have. And now we will go to our next guest. Nope. Oh, my goodness. We will wait for Michael to call us back. This happens every once in a while. Now, coming up after Mike Edelman, we're going to talk with Mike Duffy, and we have a lot to talk with him about as well. Del Husler joins us today, and A.J. Woodson. We'll take some calls at the 9 o'clock hour, and we'll be taking an early leave today to take care of some of the business as we continue to grow Radio Westchester. Let's see how we're doing now. Did we get on? Nope, didn't get him. All righty. That's what happens when I don't have a call screener. That's my own fault. Okay, some of the stuff that we're going to be talking with Mike Edelman about, obviously, the impeachment, but obviously, what will be the long-term effects on the Republican Party? We're anxious to ask him about that. We do have time. We're going to try and squeeze in another call or two. I don't know why his phone's on. No. Oh, man, he's probably still trying to leave me a message, or I've got a problem with the phones. Okay. There was a piece in the paper today by Rich Lowry. Ah, there he is. Sorry about that, Mike Edelman. Good morning, sir.
Nope, Anthony.
Anthony.
Nope, Anthony.
Oh, no, I'm glad you called back. What's on your mind?
I want to, I guess, criticize Vince.
Good,
but
he deserves it.
I understand why you two guys are friends now, because you're of the same ilk.
He's a lot more conservative than I am generally, but go ahead.
He stands here and says that Mitch McConnell should recuse himself.
Yes.
He tried to balance it by saying and this is what you do too. Oh, there's no difference on the left. But when it was in the House, I didn't hear him call for Schiff and the 17 of the 24 members on the committee who had already voted to impeach to recuse themselves.
If they're on the committee, I don't know how you recuse themselves. By the way, I didn't necessarily agree with him on that. I just let him have his say.
No, I'm not saying you did, but this is what I'm saying to you. You just can't have it one way.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
If you want to be fair-handed, you have 17 of 24 members on the committee that's charged with deciding whether to bring impeachable articles.
But there's a difference. There's a difference between an indictment and a conviction. Now, I don't want to defend Vince's point of view because I believe that impeachment is part political, and so I actually believe in that case.
We don't have to worry about a conviction if there's no indictment. If the indictment's done above board, if the indictment's not done above board and fair-handed, then how can anybody complain?
Well, where we disagree is there was clearly plenty of, and I got to try and get this guy back, and I'll make time for you when we get to 9 if you're around. But there clearly was enough information to indict. I hear your point. Where I agree with you is let me finish. Where I agree with you is the senators. I think they do have to, and they will make a political consideration. But when you're doing an investigation for the purposes of an indictment, the same people who do that are going to do that. Listen, I got to take this call, so bear with me, and we'll talk to you again later. I've got to try and get my guest back here. There we go. Michael, sorry about that. Had some phone issues.
Apparently.
No, well, I tried to get you back several times, and it kept going straight to voicemail. So we have a system there where we can do that. We were just arguing with one of my favorite callers, but who we don't agree on stuff. But actually, we agreed in this case, but he still wanted to sort of disagree with one of my other callers. Anyway, I digress. And the question is, what happens? In fact, you may want to weigh in on the issue. The caller was suggesting that McConnell and I guess Lindsey Graham should recuse themselves because they already have reached a conviction. And I understood the point, but my point is that since the very nature of impeachment is political, I don't have a problem doing it. And the second caller called up and said, but that's not even handed, criticizing the first caller, that's not even handed because why didn't the people on the panel who came up with these charges recuse themselves? And because it's a different role. Indicting is different.
But the people on the panel are in the House. They're not going to be sitting in the
right.
Senate.
That was my point. That they and they're coming up with the indictment, not
people don't understand what recusal. People don't understand why recusal is necessary. You're recused. Recusal is necessary if you're a juror, if you've reached a conclusion as to guilt or innocence before you've heard any evidence. That's why there's a voir dire at a trial, to make sure that the jurors are not biased, do not have a fixed opinion, have not seen any of the evidence, and do not talk with anybody or watch television during a criminal trial. Now, you're right that this is a political trial, But to have two jurors say in advance, before they've seen any evidence presented to them, before they've heard Bolton, Mulvaney, or Pompeo, or anybody that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to call as witnesses, for them to conclude that that the president should not be impeached is a breach of their oath, because the oath they take as jurors in the Senate is different than the constitutional oath. It says they will impartially decide the impeachment. There's a separate oath. They violated that oath.
Is that the actual oath?
Yeah, there's an oath that says they will be impartial. They will weigh the evidence, and they will come to a conclusion. And if you do that in advance, you violated that oath. That's why the recusal. That's why people want them to recuse.
I see.
They're demonstrating to the president their fealty. That's not their job. Their job is to judge the evidence presented to them as to whether or not he committed an impeachable offense as jurors.
Wow. Well, where do you think we go now? Now let's look at one of the issues that was in all the papers today, and that is that the Democrats, the reason they didn't call these other people is that it seems not to make a difference. Whatever proof they come up with, people are saying there's a nothing burger there, so they may as well go ahead. Now, how does that benefit them? How does that benefit the Democrats? Have they overreached?
No, they got to do what they got to do. And they're going to, by the way, this is not the end of it. They're going to continue to hold hearings in the House of Representatives, and they're going to continue to investigate because this is an ongoing criminal enterprise. Look what Rudy Giuliani did. He got rid of Maria Yovanovitch. Mm-hmm. He admitted he got rid of it because you know why? She was in the way of investigating the Bidens. That's what Rudy said. In a New Yorker magazine.
Why do you think he did that? You know, that's going to hurt the president. Do you think he's distancing himself from the president now?
I don't think we would be in impeachment if Rudy Giuliani wasn't traveling to Ukraine and believing the Ukrainian Russians who are being financed by Moscow. He is believing a nonsense story spun by Fox News, by Sean Hannity, that Ukraine was behind the hack of the DNC, which is nonsense. It was not behind it. And he believes that it was, and therefore he is trying in his small little world of alternative facts to get evidence to show that Ukrainian prosecutors Shokin and Lutsenko, who were both corrupt and both had to be removed, were actually that Ukraine was behind everything that Russia was behind. This is an alternative narrative that's coming out of the right-wing news because Trump did something he shouldn't have done. He asked Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden. That is a no-no. You don't use foreign policy to undermine a domestic political rival. And he did it because his pollster, Brad Parscale, told him Biden was going to beat him. There's no other explanation. He could have done Warren. He could have done Sanders. But he did Joe Biden. Because Biden's kid is working for Burisma, which probably shouldn't have happened. But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden was corrupt. It means the kid was making money off his father's name, just like Ivanka and just like Jared and just like Eric and Don Jr.
So where do we go here after this impeachment? He's going to get acquitted. He's going to use it the way Lords cures everything else you have. But at the end of the day, there are these rumors that he just doesn't even want the taint of having been impeached, but he has to accept that now. That ship is going to sail.
That's right. His obituary will begin with impeachment, and that's unfortunate for him because that means he's a loser, just like Andrew Johnson was a loser, and just like Bill Clinton actually in the end was a loser. Donald Trump doesn't know how to be president. He doesn't know how to be presidential. He doesn't respect the Constitution, and he acts like an authoritarian. So this isn't going to be over with an acquittal in the Senate. And Chuck Schumer is being very smart. He asked for 4 humans to be witnesses, Bolton, Pompeo, Mulvaney, and I forget who else. And if they say no, the question is, why not? If these guys were on the inside and these people know Trump's motivations, what is it that they could possibly testify to that would not help Donald Trump? The answer is, of course, if they tell the truth, Trump gets impeached and acquitted. And that's why. And that's why they won't testify. But that's going to turn public opinion.
You think it will? See, I don't.
Yes.
I don't. I think the president was right. I think he shoots somebody on Fifth Avenue. They don't care, because what we always
they
meet
do.
with every time we do get the goods, or someone gets the goods on this president, someone brings up something that Obama did or that Hillary did, and then it obscures the original question. And
Well, there's only one question. The question is, did the president? First of all, 70% of Americans think he did something wrong. All right. So the next question is, does that wrong arise to removal?
right.
Now, I would rather beat him in an election than remove him, and I don't have a problem with the Senate not removing him.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody in America is going to be brought along very, very slowly as to what exactly this president did, and it's not just Ukraine. We're going to learn about Deutsche Bank. We're going to learn about Lev Parnas. We're going to learn about Rudy Giuliani and Russian money. We're going to learn a whole bunch of things from now going forward that are going to defeat him in November of 2020.
All right, how are we doing? How is the world doing? How is the polls going in the battleground states? I get all conflicting stuff, different polls. I don't know what to believe. What do you see?
I think impeachment is underwater in the battleground states presently, but only by 1 or 2 points. I think after that goes away, because they're polling on impeachment, the question will be, where does Donald Trump lose to Joe Biden if Joe Biden's the nominee? And right now, he's losing in Michigan. He's losing in Pennsylvania. It's very close in Ohio, very close in Florida. And we have, a year to go. So that's what I'm saying. It's all the evidence that's going to come out post-impeachment that's going to make the difference. It's not what we know so far. It's what we're going to learn.
It's just interesting. Now, what about Joe Biden? Do you think he's going to win this nomination? I know it may be too early to tell. Certainly, Warren and Sanders have shot themselves in the foot. So, but is Mr. My friend from New York, Mr. Bloomberg, going to make any headway here?
Well, he's at 7% because he's spending $100 million. It must be nice to have $55 billion, but he's not going to get the nomination. Biden is doing very well even in Iowa. And I expect that he's going to win Iowa. New Hampshire is in doubt because Sanders and Warren are from neighboring states. He'll win South Carolina easily. He'll win Nevada. He'll win Super Tuesday. And I think he'll be nominated on the first ballot.
Now, he said he only wants to run for one term. What does that do to things?
Well, he said that to his staff because I think he wants people not to be afraid that an 82-year-old guy is going to run for a consecutive term. But that makes his vice presidential pick extremely important because he needs to pick somebody that isn't going to scare middle America. He can't pick a radical progressive as his vice president because the assumption will be that that person will ascend to the presidency. So he's got to pick somebody who's moderate, probably a female, possibly a female of color, which brings Stacey Abrams into the lineup, and there are a whole bunch of other people too as well. But that's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have a ticket that appeals and motivates the Obama coalition.
Now, I owe this to my listeners. Do you still say he'll resign before he's voted out?
Yep. I'll say he's going to leave office. He will leave office before he loses. But the polls are going to have to be decisively demonstrating to him that Biden is going to beat him. Once that happens, he'll leave.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
All right. Take care. How's the weather down there?
80 and sunny.
I hate you. All right, Mike Edelman, everybody. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. It is 7:35. We're going to take a look at the weather, and we do expect to hear from Mike Duffy in a few minutes. Right now, it is 34 here. It's 30, though, up county, and I hope it doesn't get much colder here before it dries up. But let me get my weather out. The weather is brought to you, of course, exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. 34, raining. It's been raining off and on all night, all morning. It's kind of perilous out there. Hopefully it'll give way. Now, up county, north of 287 and elsewhere, you are going to get you're going to get ice and slush and snow and have even more dangerous driving. So please be careful until this passes. Now tonight, partly cloudy. The temperature will be 28 degrees. The wind will be out of the northwest, 10 to 20 miles an hour. Wednesday, mostly sunny. A few flurries, though. The temperature 35, wind out of the west at 15 to 30. But Thursday, it gets cold. I mean very cold. Sunshine through high, thin clouds. That's good. But the high only 25, the overnight low 17 degrees. And Friday, more sun. The temperature getting up to 31, but at night, it dropping down to 19 degrees. And the bottom of the 7 o'clock hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality, along with our friends at Dominic's Cigars. Please welcome. We have so many things to talk with him about today. I've been saving a lot of it just for him. Mike Duffy's a defense attorney these days, but he's also a former detective, a former cop on the beat, the former head of investigations for Westchester County DA's office. Please welcome Mike Duffy. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Bob.
It's always a pleasure to have you. Man,
Thank you.
How the hell, lately, some of the stories that we have here, how do you manage to be a cop on the beat and a detective and not get depressed? I did a story yesterday that I saved for you.
Okay.
And this just has to do with what it must be like to do the job, but also there was a guy, and I'm sure you read the story, who his girlfriend's baby, not his. And you see this all the time. He beat this kid so mercilessly that, as the medical examiner put it, he had more broken bones in his ribs, more broken ribs than he had ribs. He would put the kid in an ice-cold shower. He would beat him with literally with sticks. And finally, he killed a little boy. And at the end, he hung him on a hook. Now, this guy he should never get out of jail, but I know we have laws. Now, when you see something like this, and I'm sure you've handled cases like this, how do you keep from becoming so cynical? You just don't want to do the job anymore.
Well, cynicism, Bob, is one of the great perils of police work, just as it is for emergency room trauma nurses and doctors and similar military veterans, similar type situations where you see horrible things that people usually don't see and you're not supposed to see. So, yeah, it does hit you, but you got to have your core values when you go into these jobs. I think I did. I think most people I worked with did. You have sensitive people that go into these positions, and things sometimes don't work out so well. But nowadays there is there's help when you see traumatic type situations. Years ago that didn't exist. Okay, so now they'll decompress you. You'll talk to a therapist or a medical provider, and go from there. Which it may help, it may not, but at least we're doing something.
Well, I'm going to dive a little deeper. In a case like this, you know that it's a societal and a cultural problem. You have a woman that's staying with a guy for God knows what reason, who's killing her kid, who's beating her kid. You have a child protection services organization that mails it in and that is overwhelmed. And people don't dare talk about, because there are racial implications, there are cultural implications, they don't dare talk about the underlying problems for fear of creating a politically incorrect dynamic.
Right. Well, now, Bob, you can't say anything about anybody or anything. So that definitely has an impact on these types of situations. But this also gets back to a mental health problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, somebody who does something like that is a sick person, right? I think we all have
and
to
so
agree
is the
that's
woman.
A sick individual.
The girl has to be a sick individual to stay with this guy who's beating her kid.
And CPS, they are overloaded. They do the best they can, but they're one agency. They can't possibly cope with all these things. You can't be everywhere at the right time. You can get visited by a CPS agent, and then when they leave and shut the door and you figure, they're going to be back in a week, I can do what I want now. That's how some of these people think. And, we have some terrible people out there, Bob. I have hope in humanity, and I'm not
So
making
do I.
light of it.
No, so do I. But
just,
Jesus.
This mental health situation has really exacerbated itself upon society with all these different types of things. There's a lack of faith now, lack of family. I mean, all that adds up to what we're seeing now.
It really does, and it skews your view of things, and you have to fight like mad. I mean, fight like mad not to be, and one of the things that has always kept me from sliding too far to the left is the performance of government agencies. For example, now this is a true story, and I'll try and mask it to protect the innocent. A friend who is a paraplegic was out at a Christmas thing. They finally let him out of the nursing home so he could meet his old friends,
Mm-hmm.
But he had to depend on Access-a-Ride because the person is bound to a wheelchair in ways that where there are things hooked up and whatever. They screwed up his return trip so bad that he was 5 hours late to get back to his institution. And they made errors. In fact, one of the errors they make, one of the mistakes that was made was a little confusing. So what one of the people on the other end did, she deliberately put it on hold so that someone else would have to deal with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you can't get fired from these jobs. The union protects you. They don't have good hiring standards. So long as you have electricity going on in your brain, you get hired. People see this, and then they wonder why no one wants to move to a big city and why they want to get out of Dodge. And these are things that the conservatives have been saying forever. And why doesn't government listen?
Well, Bob, I think the government does listen the best extent that they can, but government is not there to solve every problem. And
no, but that's a problem they should solve. When you've got somebody who's in a wheelchair and you provide a service.
Important, but you said it yourself. They're not hiring the brightest bulbs in these jobs.
No kidding.
Who wants to do these types of jobs? And you get people who have no background investigation. They come in, maybe they have criminal records. You can't even ask that now. Westchester has that don't check the box or whatever that is. You can ask Mr. Latimer about that. I mean, if you're working in a bank, or you have a bank, wouldn't you want to know if somebody's been convicted of larceny?
Well, you have to bond
like
them.
That.
In that case, you have to bond them. If you have to bond someone, you're going to
care. Background investigations are required. Like I said, too, you get people who are just completing 8th grade education going into these positions. That it's a societal issue all around, and there's no easy fix. The companies themselves that bid out to government agencies, the government could do a much better job keeping them under the gun.
Well,
You don't do this, you don't qualify, or you don't investigate. We're gonna drop your contract. Those are multi-million-dollar contracts that I'm sure these people would not want to lose. And if they get inspected from time to time by the county, by local law enforcement or health agencies, whatever agencies apply, then I think you'd have a better result. They have a program I talked about with you a couple of years ago, I think, in White Plains, whereby they have a task force for these ramshackle buildings that there's an owner, and the owner just rents out to 8 or 9 families. Well, the city of White Plains will get together the fire department, the health department, police department, and they'll go in, building department, they'll go in and check these places for the various violations in a legal manner. And then if they have to, they'll shut these places down. But you can't have these fire traps existing, and they turn into tragic situations. So maybe an overall government task force type operation.
They do have those task forces. I'm aware of it. However, you get into some other little touchy issues, and I'm going to sound like a wild-eyed conservative today, but as everyone who listens to this program knows,
definitely privacy issues. And
that I go back and forth. For example, a lot of inspections don't get done because they don't want to discover that there are illegal immigrants there in an illegal apartment and open up that can of worms, which they should open up. Whether you're to the right or the left, you can't be having fire traps, and you can't not go and inspect them because you're worried you're going to find an undocumented immigrant who you can't report on, ergo stalemate.
Yeah, well, we're scared of our own shadow now, whatever we do. I mean, it's horrible.
And then you have people in inspection jobs, in counties, in cities, where everybody just goes along to get along. Let's just get our paychecks, go home for lunch, leave at 4. The most dangerous place in a municipality is at 4:30. Don't stand in the front door. Because people go running out that goddamn thing like they're in a track meet. It is 7:46. I'm sorry, but all righty. Let's go to another. I saved a lot of stuff for you today.
I see.
We'll get to Christmas nice things towards the end of it, but did you see this story with the punch sleigh gang suspect? And I realized if you kill somebody even with one punch, you're not in a hell of a lot of trouble. This guy's out on bail and his family's going nuts. But it wasn't just a punch; it was a brazen attack. They asked the guy. Here's what happened: guy's going down the street with his girlfriend. 3 guys come up to him. They'll use, "Hey, you got a cigarette?" "No, I don't smoke." Then they ran. They said, "Oh, okay." Then they ran back, and one of the people sucker punched the guy and killed him. Now, this guy is out on bail because of the rules regarding one punch. Good grief. I know there's...
what state is that?
This is in New York.
New York?
Yeah.
I don't know of any one-punch rule, but I can tell you this, that, excuse me, what they have, Bob, excuse me, let me just clear my throat. Thank you.
That's all right.
What they have is an intent to assault. Look, you don't intend to kill somebody generally if you come up and smack the guy in the head, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens is people fall into curves. Some people are more sensitive. They have something going on in their brain where you hit them in a sensitive position. It could cause death. But generally, legally, you go up and hit a guy anywhere. The head is more sensitive, obviously, but that's not an intent to kill.
Right.
So I'm guessing something, because I have not read that story. I've not seen that story. But it has to do with something as to the degree of assault that was alleged.
It's called at she called it the perpetrator, the victim's sister called it New York's license to kill based on what's called the one-punch law. I don't know. Legal experts say that even if the alleged punch led to Rodriguez's death, upgrading the assault charge to manslaughter would depend on a very different proposition of proving there was an intent to kill.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. You have an assault, and then if death occurs, manslaughter. But intent has a lot to do with it. There's also recklessness that has to do with it. But in order to cause charge manslaughter in that situation, I think that's a tough road to hoe.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, so I wanted to touch the story because it made a lot of news. 2 more stories for you. I got a lot for you. 7:48.
I guess I should have read the paper.
No, because we like putting it out there, and then you go. It's like being on a jury. You don't get prejudiced towards what I pitch to you. I want to get to a law case settled yesterday, but one more item. It must be, and I'm going back to the cop on the beat part or the detective part of Mike Duffy. Again, Mike Duffy, our guest, very fine defense attorney, former detective, cop, and head of investigations for the DA's office. One of the stories that troubled me earlier in the week was this death in Morningside Park, because a lot of the rhetoric coming out of that part of the world is how northern Manhattan and that part of Harlem has gotten much better, which it has. But what we get so carried away with the spin, it got better the way a ceasefire in Vietnam got better. I mean, and I said to myself when I did this story, but I keep reading about crimes and didn't know what covered in the news. And then sure enough, crime's up there 82%. When you're out there, what is the difference between, how big is the gap between the spin that we get on neighborhoods in the press and then the reality of it?
Huge.
It is huge, isn't it?
That's always been a tough area. You know that.
Yes.
City. So you have an isolated community. You have Barnard, you have security, this and that. And now there's a big issue I saw. I did read this morning. NYPD is coming under fire for, blame for, and I say not just as a manner of speech, but in a way, they're blaming the victim for saying she was going out to buy marijuana. Now, I don't know where that came out, that story. If it came out, if it's true, it's true. That doesn't give somebody license
to go
kill this beautiful young girl who was in college. And, that's a horrific crime. And what makes it more horrific is the kid.
He's 13 years old.
Is 13 years old. I mean, this crime is the worst of the worst that you can have, probably. People, though, they come into these areas from Midwest or maybe upstate New York or wherever, and they're not acclimated
street savvy
to the street situation there. And you know that from being a New York City guy. You shouldn't be walking around that area at night.
No, you shouldn't be.
you need some street sense, and this is not victim blaming either, but you need that, and you need, if you're going out, you need either Uber or security escort. A lot of these campuses do escorts off campus to a reasonable area away from the campus, but you can't say, well, I'm going to go buy marijuana, and they're going to do it. And I don't know what that girl was doing out there. I don't care if she was buying marijuana. Marijuana is almost legal now in New York. That young lady was stabbed, and that's
I don't care if she was buying fentanyl from the devil himself.
Right.
She's but the other issue, and heaven forbid that a law enforcement officer talks about it. What are 13-year-olds doing, killing and mugging people? Where are their parents? Where's Child Protection Services
where are the
or whatever
parents,
there?
Number one, and it's societal. You can be charged with murder. You can be charged with second-degree murder at 13 years old. They changed that law many years ago, and I expect that's what they're going to do with this young man. I'm assuming it's a young man. They have another one under arrest. They have another one, a suspect that they had to kick loose because there wasn't enough evidence. But I have faith in the NYPD, and I'm sure they're going to wrap it up investigation-wise. But socially, it's a horrible problem. They were there. Look, if they hung out around that area, there's also a story, I don't know if it was the exact same group, because there was a deli owner in the area that said these kids used to come in.
Yeah, I read that story.
Cause problems. I don't know if it's the exact same individuals. I don't think this guy knows either. But they could be. They're not stupid kids. They're street smart kids. They want to prey on certain vulnerable people in the area that come out on the street, and who's more vulnerable than an 18-year-old college girl from wherever who just comes out walking on the streets at night?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm 1,000 years old, and I came from a rough neighborhood, obviously growing up, but I still don't let anyone walk directly behind me. You walk directly behind me, you could get punched. I'm going to the right of you, the left of you, and if you stay behind me, and it's not with any paranoia, I'm not getting angry, but I'm aware that you're there. I'm aware that you're there.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it has to be said. All right, one more story. This is a little more intricate. Did you read, I'm so confused by this story and troubled by it because of some of the underlying things that I know were going on in Mount Vernon. But they found Picari guilty, but they had 3 times they had a hung jury, and the lawyer went to them, the judge went to them with something called an Allen charge. What is that?
Yeah, basically they just want you to keep trying and reach a verdict. I did not think, and I'll call him Larry. I don't know him that well. I had a few involvements with him.
And folks, we're talking about the Lawrence Picari guilty. I thought this was a miscarriage, but that's just
I thought. Look, and Steve Lewis is a friend of mine, the defense counsel. So I don't want to go too deeply into this, but I was very surprised that Mr. Picari was found guilty on that. It just didn't seem. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words on that. I didn't get it, and I'm going to read it deeper and see.
I wish you wouldn't help me out because one of the things that was acknowledged in the courtroom, and I've been screaming because it's my job in the news to do that. With paperwork I foiled. Now it doesn't mean if he broke the law, he broke the law, and it's second from what I'm about to say, because clearly, and maybe other shoes will drop. Because of whatever dysfunction was going on in City Hall, okay? And I don't know how they framed the defense. Reportedly, actually, I'll go a second level. For whatever reason, political or because the mayor wasn't preparing bills properly, the comptroller who's elected in that city wouldn't pay bills. And so they developed the habit of paying bills out of the water department. I certainly, and it was done. Now, this bill, because it was a defense of the mayor, which Picari, they went, I guess, to some guy, I think Kessler, for advice, said it was okay to do it. But again, I know a lot depends on how he presented it to the water department. But nonetheless, they were paying lots of bills out of the water department.
Well, that's a viable defense, isn't it? He didn't have intent to steal. He didn't get any money. He didn't profit from this. These defense attorneys, I don't know where Mayor Thomas dragged these guys up. One guy from Florida, another guy with a bow tie. I mean, that just seemed I don't want to seem disparaging, but there's plenty of great, and I don't mean me, defense attorneys in the county of Westchester. You don't have to go to Florida for somebody and some other unknown in the area. I just thought that was a mistake. Now these guys were the ones who profited off of this. They got a lot of money out of this. The water department pays, like you say, because the regular controller would not pay the money. These people wanted to get paid for the work they did, and the city paid them. They don't care what fund the city pays them out of.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's an administrative thing.
See, the only
they found
thing
them guilty.
To the degree that I could pry back this, and without the knowledge and wisdom that you have, the one thing that seems to be inconsistent was that he said it was an emergency, and there's this rather subtle thing that we lay people don't understand. One of the things he was convicted of is filing a false record or something. In other words, the reasons he purportedly requested the money for were not quite accurate.
Right, and that's the thing that'll always get you in trouble. That you can go down on, but that's not the same as the other charges. You can't do that as an attorney. If you're an attorney, you do that in any type of situation. That's a disbarable offense. That's a fraud on whatever public agency that you're dealing with.
Yeah,
you
well,
file
that's
a false affidavit for anything. If you notarize something falsely, you can lose your law license over that. And I don't know what that form was, but that's. You know
what's funny though, and this is now aside from this case, because I understand every case needs to be judged on its merits, but the problem that I have in dealing in Mount Vernon is, again, it's a very democratic city in a very democratic county where everybody from the DA, the governor, their grandmother, their children, and bugs on the ground are Democrats. When they want to pursue something, when they don't want to, a lot of people get away with stuff. And when they do, they go after a lawyer like this when so much more corruption has gone on in that city. This is something stinks.
Well, the last two DAs have been from Mount Vernon, actually. Janet DeFiore, who's now chief judge of the Court of Appeals, and Tony Scarpino.
No, but this came out of the state AG's office.
You know, an interesting thing, Bob, is that Mimi Roca from Scarsdale raised $111,000 in 1 week last week after announcing. So I think that's going to be a very, very interesting Westchester race to watch.
Oh, it really is, yeah, and she's very charismatic. Although, you know what I worry about, and you know my feelings about this in her case. See, I want a law passed when I become king, where if you run for DA, you become a DA, you can't ever run for higher office, because I don't trust their motives. And now I like Scarpino. He seems modest. He doesn't seem like he's careering. And I'm not. By the way, he didn't take this case. This case, I believe, was brought by the state agent.
It was, the New York State Attorney General's office. Right.
Well, you must go nuts in this job. The job is driving me nuts. I need a vacation. I'm telling you all this stuff. So.
Well, when you have lawyers involved and you have certain.
Kind of twitch in my
they
left
have to recuse themselves from certain types of cases. Or the agencies themselves, I don't know if there was a recusal here, but the agencies themselves can bring these cases. Very rare for the New York State Attorney General's office to pop in and do this, but I think they were just trying to do something with Mount Vernon. That might have come from up above in Albany.
Meanwhile, tons of dirt were dumped at Memorial Field, nothing. A judge orders a sitting judge, orders the controller to show the books to the mayor. She doesn't do it, and the judge doesn't follow up and find her for contempt. Councilman Lyndon Williams, this is my own work, has written the DA's office, has written the state attorney general, has written to everybody and their grandmother, please investigate Mount Vernon, and not for this specific thing, which if they got him, they got him. If they find the mayor on something, they get him, the former mayor. But the thing is, there's so much corruption there, it almost seems like they were cherry picking.
Bob, I had a case years ago I worked on down in Mount Vernon. It was situated in the city of Mount Vernon. Yeah. And we were working on that with the FBI, and it involved law enforcement. And it's just terrible what goes on down there. Yeah. And the end result was a couple of people got prosecuted, but the situations goes on to this day.
And well, the new mayor going in has used the absolute word, which is pretty damning. She said she believes there's criminality in the police department, and she's going to go after it as soon as she's elected, and she's going to complete the audits that the former mayor says, and I have to say says because it'll all come out in the wash. He says he tried to get those audits done, but that the controller wouldn't pay for them, or that the agencies wouldn't pay for them.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go in there as the new mayor and say I think there's criminality in the police department unless you had some pretty strong proof.
Well, she says she does.
I think you should say I'm going to investigate all these agencies, make sure everything's on the up and up.
But then again, it's Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
Mike, I see I had a whole bucket of fun stuff for you today. I try to prepare. And again, I must say this about you, and I've always been grateful. I don't call Mr. Duffy up the night before and say, I'm going to hit you with this, and this. There's no bias and malice or forethought in his heart.
You caught me flat-footed on a few things.
No, not really. No. I was prepared to put my own spin on it and deceive and testing out your skills in the courtroom. Michael, I am so grateful for your time. Mike Duffy, very fine defense attorney.
Be careful out there. A lot of places complaining about ice. It's just rain up here where I am, but it's some icy situations, so be careful.
Yeah, I've been reminding people of that all day. Mike Duffy, thank you so very much. And if someone wants your
Bob.
legal skills, or they want their kid interrogated, I kidded him, folks, one day. I said, tell me how you would approach me. I admitted to things.
Incarcerated.
How do we get you?
I'm in downtown White Plains. You can just Google me. I'm at 245 Main Street in White Plains.
And if you Google Coppa, he's there too. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Bob.
I'm going to hell. All righty. Jake's in the house. I want to ask him about Drew Brees. Jake, I need you to sit in the hall of microphones. Jake Schaefer is in the house. I think he's got new glasses. No, I don't know if they're new glasses or if he just didn't shave. Drew Brees, he was one of my top stories today. Snuck all this Eli talk, all this talk about Tom Brady, all this talk about Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and all of a sudden, Drew Brees is at the top of the news. How'd that happen?
Did you actually watch the game?
Of course not. I was trying to make money for us, but
This is a record that will be broken many, many times over the next 10 years. I have a feeling I'm sure Mahomes will have the record in 15 years from now. Just how the quarterbacks are protected, and it's so easy. It's a lot easier than, say, when Dan Marino was playing. So it's a nice record, but it'll be broken over and over and over as the quarterbacks continue to get to
be protected. But a guy like Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson's not going to be among them if he keeps running the ball, right? Like RJ, you brought up the issue. I'm learning from you, Do you know, because of you, I hate to give people credit, but I will. Because of you, Jake, and your participation in this radio station, I've actually watched more football this year, to the extent that I have the time, than I have in 10 years. So you've made it more interesting for me. I just want to tell you that. It's
less hockey?
There's never less hockey. I just added to the other 1,000 things. No, because I like, one of the things that I'm driven by, for lack of a better word, is how things work, the subtleties. And football has so much of that. But I played in this really great hockey league, which was always Sundays. So it sort of takes you out of football. It stunted my football growth. Well, when I was younger, my brother was a big Green Bay Packers fan, and I liked the Packers. That's because that's all I knew. And then I'm one of the few odd ducks that roots for the Jets and Giants, a little more partial to the Giants. But now I know it wasn't Abe Lincoln days, but I do remember. Damn it! I remember the Jets Super Bowl win very well.
Joe Namath.
Yeah, I just want to mention that and get it off my chest because it was 50 years ago. But I do remember it actually very well. But I've been a Giants fan in recent years. Yeah.
Oh, I'm very proud that the Bills are now New York's team this year. Clinched a playoff spot.
Well, that's right, an upstate team for you. Is that the team people root for in Central New York? The Bills?
A lot of Eagles fans, too, but that was a lot to do with Donovan McNabb.
Why, was he from Syracuse?
He's from Syracuse, yes.
Is that where he played or is that where he's from?
Played in Syracuse.
Okay, played in Syracuse.
College. I saw the Garrett Cole thing, and I was thinking, I talked to a new friend, Boris, at B&A Barbershop, and I was going to have him come in and shave you maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I said I would. Okay, so I should leave my face like this.
I was thinking maybe we could really grow it out over the holidays. And then
do you want me to do it?
Would you do that? Do you have any pictures that you have to take, or family functions where you can't look like a caveman?
No, I'm okay. Well, you see me today, so now I'm going to let it grow, and we bring him in like for New Year's around then. Well, you know what is cool? I can shave it and see how I look with a goatee or different. Okay, you get him in here, and obviously he's going to pay us money. I'll do it. I can't believe that I've committed to do this, but I'm going to do it to promote.
I know
our
you'll
radio
forget.
station.
You're gonna forget.
No, I won't.
I'm gonna have to send you.
No, I'm not going to forget.
Daily text. Please do not shave.
I did one of these things, and I wore pink fingernails. Did I ever tell you the worst thing I did to promote my radio show?
Shameless.
No, this was really bad. Did you ever read about these cryogenic chambers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I need to borrow your coffee. No, I got an old coffee. To promote my old show, there were these people that were going to sponsor with us. Actually, they didn't, but still it was a good radio bit. There's a place here in Westchester that does the cryogenics, where it's supposed to help you. Now, here's what you have to do, and I'm glad I have the visual. Well, first of all, you get naked, okay? But they can put a coat on it. And now you got to understand the context. A lot of this has to do with stupid male ego, okay? Well, first of all, let me back up. I'm going to do the beard thing, but make sure they're committed, so I don't want to look like a gorilla for no purpose.
That'd be a good prank.
So I had to, first of all, you get naked. Then you get in this device. You walk in. It's like a big, giant cup, like a vat. Think of a vat. And you stand in it, and your head's over here. Now you're naked. And then they reduce the temperature in there to 55 below zero, and they throw a switch, and you got to do it like for 3 minutes. Oh, I thought, there's no polite way to say this, I thought it was going to fall off.
There was nothing refreshing about it.
Nope. And I thought it was, and I'm going to be honest, the only reason I didn't give the kill switch is the two people that ran it, the people that ran it were two beautiful women, and I didn't want to look like a wuss bunny. But I hated it. I was petrified of it. And I thought that I would never be able to be intimate with a woman again. Everything was frozen stiff. Well, it was frozen. It was actually, I think it went back inside me. Oh, my God.
Dear God.
And then finally, that was the longest 3 minutes of my life. And then you get out of I didn't feel right all day, and my joints ached for 2 days. Now, supposedly, it gets rid of all the inflammation in you. But it's the craziest thing I ever did. And the most embarrassing was I was one of these people that had to wear pink, for the breast cancer, which I willingly did. But I had this bit where if people contributed money, I would do things for it. And I promised that I'd paint my fingernails. It's all over it's still on the internet somewhere. My family was embarrassed by it. They shouldn't have. But I painted my fingernails pink. And then that night, after the bet was over, I went to the drugstore, and I never bought nail polish remover in my life. And I'm holding it up. Is this a nail polish remover? I've been flipped. Let's see. I've been flipped by judo people. That hurt. And I tried to get on one of those horses. Those ride. That I wound up over it like a dead man on a horse. Let me see, what else did I do? Oh, you do a whole bunch of things over the years. I did climb the rock thing, though. Over at the rock thing here in New Rochelle, I climbed that. And I did not like it, but I did it. I went to the top. In other words, why hurt yourself for no purpose? I already play hockey. I do that.
Anything for a little promotion.
Yeah, so you want me to tell me who these people are, since we have to give them sponsorship credit.
In New Rochelle, B&A Barbershop. They're half a mile from the station.
And they're going to shave me.
He was going to come in tomorrow, but I figure it'd be a lot more conducive for the YouTube people.
No, and plus we'll give them a day. We'll give them the 9 o'clock hour, and I will shave. So this is going to be ridiculous, but I'll do it.
So I ordered my Star Wars ticket. I'm going on Thursday. And
now, have you seen every Star Wars?
Yeah, I've seen everyone right at the first day.
Okay. I loved the first two, but then it's just I couldn't stay on top.
So I ordered my ticket yesterday, and then I woke up this morning, and to my great dismay, they had the screenings last night for, the big premiere for the cast, but all the critics got to see it as well. There's an embargo until tomorrow. They can't print anything. But to my great dismay, I saw that someone went into the theater with a video camera, little camera, and so now I know the whole movie.
You know someone who did that?
I know that someone did it, and I know that I watched it, so I know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But was it very clear?
No.
Oh, God, but you watched it
But
anyway.
I know all the surprises.
Now, are you
and
one of these
whatnot.
guys that also likes...
And it is terrible.
who likes all the Avenger movies as well?
No.
No, okay. Because my grandson does, so I go there, and I loved, he used to take me to Spider-Man movies and Batman movies, but the Avenger movies lose me after a while. I forget who's on whose side, and no one ever dies. They just get beat up, but they stand, not that I want people to die, but he's into it, and he knows, I can't follow the plot. I
get car sick in those movies.
Oh. All right, a couple of other things I want to mention that were in sports yesterday. You mentioned Garrett Cole. Speaking of shaving, he has to shave now that he's a Yankee. He doesn't want to. Well, can I go on the record? For $365 million, I would shave every hair. I go through electrolysis. I would take I'd have them pull the hair out of my lids with air cannons for 306. So he'll gladly do it, right?
You'd move into one of those chambers for a month.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That scared me. And I only stayed, I'm telling you, I didn't feel right for weeks. I'd never do it again.
All those that's what the professional athletes do now.
Dude, but I think they just do it like for an arm. I don't think they're standing in there with their important body parts freezing.
Well, you know what happened with Ted Williams.
Oh, they cry here, but that's cryogenics where it's not 55 below zero. It's at a moderating temperature where the cells don't burst. Once the cells burst, you can't.
I wonder when it's stated for them to de-thaw him.
No, I don't know.
When's he coming back?
I don't know. No one knows. Anything else that you've seen or you've done? Have you started preparing for Friday yet? Are you looking at any of your games?
Well, my preparation has kind of let me down the last couple of weeks, so I'm kind of thinking of a new strategy. Maybe darts.
No, we have the wheel. We have but isn't though that the essence of a gambler has to be like a relief pitcher or a goaltender? You got to just look past the last week. No.
You're absolutely right. You just have to move forward.
Well, it's good to see you. We're going to go over the weather and the news and look at some of our next guests. Del from Hoosler is going to join us in a couple of minutes. Jake, a lot of crazy news today, just a lot of crazy news with everything going on. So
crazy weather out there. My train was delayed a few minutes.
Yeah, there are all the people on the way to the train. I always, I concentrate so much, I hardly ever look out the window, but people just keep racing to the train behind me, don't they?
It's nice the train station does have someone to put out salt.
Wow, look at all those people out there. Let me see, you can't see this. It's still too dark out there for people to see all the people, but I wore another kind of Christmas sweater today, trying to be in the mood.
In the spirit.
Got to put some lights up. Jake Schaefer, everybody. He'll be back at 9 o'clock. I'm going to talk with him about a couple of other things. So this is the one, the only Radio Westchester. We are the radio station at the train station. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. Jake Schaefer is here with us. He is our... he does a lot of production stuff. You'll hear more and more from him on air, but he is our in-house sports guy, also our in-house betting expert, who is just a lick over 500. And he also is the guy that will more and more be getting me into trouble. Now I'm going to be shaved right on the air. And there are people you should know, Jake, that won't mind if my throat gets slit. Jake Schaefer. Okay, let's take a look at it. It's 8:14. We need to take a look at the weather. And as Mike Duffy said, it is a little bit dangerous out there, particularly north of 287 or on up into Ulster and Orange and Putnam counties. He's up, I guess, around the Pleasantville area. He says it's raining there. It's raining heavily, but a lot depends on the temperature. Right now here in New Rochelle, it's 33, so we're just ahead of the game, and we should be fine. But if you're north, you could run into some issues, so please be careful with the snow and the ice. It's raining. Not so heavily right now. Actually, it's still raining pretty heavily, but it was really torrential overnight and into the morning hours. Be careful driving. Also, there is still a lot of leaves on the ground from the fall. Be careful. They're very slippery. Tonight, partly cloudy. The temperature 28. The wind will be out of the northwest, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Mostly sunny and a few flurries. Tomorrow, 35 degrees. But now, Thursday, things change. The good news, some sun. Sunshine through high thin clouds. The high will be 25. The overnight low, 17. Friday, more of the same. Sunny. the high 31 degrees. The overnight low will be 19. And the weather brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit UHGC.com. Now, some of the stories we've been following for you this morning, we mentioned the Pocari story. The House Counsel, the lead counsel for the city of Mount Vernon has been found guilty of fraud and misrepresenting documents in his corruption charge, that of moving $355,000 from the water department to pay for the mayor's legal bills. The mayor himself was not indicted. It has less to do with who benefited from it than who got the money under what the law now convicted him of was a false presentation. Although one senses from the people we've talked to that we could, since the verdict came out, there's a good chance, I think, that this will be appealed and in another trial, particularly the way the judge charged the jury. Another story out there is the interfaith group here in New Rochelle. It's combating with the school board because they're not crazy about the decision to hire the new superintendent. A lot of bells and whistles to that. Westchester election, 60% uptick in voter turnout for an off-year election. Quite remarkable. This day of Trump, pro-Trump, and anti-Trump sentiments have brought a lot of people to the polls. And undocumented immigrants are getting the green light for New York drivers. New Jersey's right behind them. And the lines at the Yonkers DMV yesterday were around the block. And many people have mixed feelings about that. They want it to be safer. They want these people to be insured and to know how to drive. When I say these people who may be here illegally. But what it does is further validates the presence of people who are here illegally with no recourse for the law, at least the federal law. It's a very tangled situation. And to be fair to Donald Trump, folks, he's the only person who's tried. You may not like the way he's trying to deal with it, but the Republicans and the Democrats have not. Since Ronald Reagan tried, and he himself failed to fix the problem. So we'll see where we go from there. Now, Del Husel is coming up in just a moment, but we're going to open up the phones for a minute, too. 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141. If you live in Mount Vernon, how do you feel about the verdict for Mr. Pocari? What I would encourage people to do, because we're going to put this under a microscope in the weeks ahead, how do you feel about this verdict in a city where there's so much corruption and so much going on? Why did they focus in on this bill? Was it because, and that's okay, but we're trying to figure out, was it because it was used to defend the mayor of charges, and those charges stemming out of the same office, and the mayor pled guilty ultimately and moved on, but out of the same office that prosecuted Mr. Pocari? Or was it their distaste for the fact that they believed that a lawyer misrepresented the use of public funds, which of course makes a lot of sense from that point of view? But really, why? Why did they pursue this so vigorously when there's so much other corruption that when asked to look into that, they turned a blind eye? Or maybe they didn't. Maybe one day there'll be a whole list of people indicted in Mount Vernon. Who knows? But something's not right. And part of our job here is to keep a light on it and the types of people that we have on. Speaking of which, we can't wait to talk with A.J. Woodson about that at 8:35. He joins us, and then on into 8:50. But the phones are open, 222-9141, 222-9141. And I want to take a look at a couple of other stories that were in the news today and share them with you before Del joins us. And man, I'm still upset by how many. I wish someone would call up who watched the Ranger game last night. I didn't. And if you did, I'd like to get your feelings about it, because something is just not right. It says they played well, or they outshot the other team, but they got their butts kicked physically. And I gotta look into this. So if you watched the Ranger game last night, did you, Jay? You didn't happen to watch. Jake didn't either. Did you see who's replacing Francesa?
Yeah, Evan and Joe.
Yeah, they hopefully they'll do a good job. They do a pretty good job there anyway. But if you saw that game, we'd like to hear from you. Also, if you saw you saw the Drew Brees game, didn't you? He was that good, huh?
Good game, very good.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other items in the news. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back after this. $8:22. Welcome back to Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. A story this morning, kind of sweet. And these things happen. We've seen it happen before. And if you've seen it happen in your family, we'd like to hear from you. A Michigan husband and wife, Jake, they were married 70 years. 70 years, and they died within 20 minutes of each other over the weekend. Lee and Frida Austin, both 90, took their last breaths while lying side by side in their beds in hospice care Saturday. Les, a U.S. Air Force veteran who retired from the Michigan State Police after 40 years, died first. Frida was unconscious at the time, but family members said her eyebrows sunk down when he passed, and she died 20 minutes later. The couple's heads fell into the direction of one another in their dying moments. If they had to go, this way was about as romantic as you could get. The pair had enjoyed a full life together for more than 7 decades. Les and Frida enjoyed traveling and camping through Michigan and focused their travels on lighthouse locations. Daughter Sandy Mays said her parents were inseparable. They did everything together. They didn't stop with death. I think they knew each other was passing, and they are eternally together. I think it was beautiful. Frida, who worked as a manager at a dry cleaning company, collected decorative Christmas villages and was an impeccable homemaker. The couple married in 1949, met in high school, and that was that. That is a sweet story, and it is a nice Christmas story, I guess. Well, death is never nice, but if you're going to go, that is not a bad way to have it happen. So what can we say? Now, I'm trying to get some updates on some of these other stories that we've been following for you here on this program. Let me see some of the others. You know, the Blue Jackets beat the Capitals. We like that. I'm still a big John Tortorella fan, so that you need to know. Also, I got to get to the front part of this. Yeah, you know, I'm looking at the newspaper, right? We took the stories out this morning that meant a lot. But we did also this story. Hundreds of mourners packed the Jersey City Funeral Home yesterday to remember the veteran cop slayed by 2 gun-wielding domestic terrorists in last week's bloody attack. What we also found really interesting was that the group of Hasidic, or I should say, yes, Orthodox Hasidic Jewish folks from up in the valley, up in the Hudson Valley, raised $50,000 for his family. And this guy had 5 kids, 40 years old. And no one really understands why these people did what they did. A very strange story, that. Now, this having to do with the problems up in Morningside Heights. The murder of Bernard College freshman Tessa Majors could thaw decades of icy relations between cops and students in the Morningside Heights campus and its sister school, Columbia University. Students at the colleges who have long decried undercover police presences on their campuses and NYPD enforcement and protests have begun calling for more cops following last week's murder blocks away in Morningside. And speaking of the school system here, there was that great debate over SROs, and of course we wound up not having any, and I guess the board and the people that vote on such things felt we didn't need them. Now, another important law that was upheld, by the way, much to the chagrin of many, particularly Rich Lowry today in the New York Post. We talked about this in the 6 o'clock hour. The Supreme Court yesterday just ensured, said Rich Lowry, that the nation's homelessness crisis will continue. The High Court declined to take up an appeal of a ruling by the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit covering the western United States that homeless encampments are a de facto constitutional right. That's interesting. The Ninth Circuit has a long history of reading the law as if its judges are actors in an absurdist play, he said. In the encampment case stemming from a Boise, Idaho ordinance and truly lived up to its cracked credentials or standards, the court maintained that enforcing a prohibition against camping in public places a violation of the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. That's real. So the long and short of it is that people are going to continue to do what would I consider to be the unthinkable. Let's see. How did I miss? I'm hoping that he watched the game last night. How did I miss this call from Tom? There, he's ringing now. Thomas, good morning. Thomas is on the line from Pelham. How are you, sir?
Well, Bob, I'm sick.
What's the matter?
Oh, I got something, it's like my throat and my chest, that kind of thing.
Well, you shouldn't be upset over your hockey team, which can do no wrong, by the way. Did you see the Ranger game last night? Were you responding to my cry?
Bob, yeah, I only watched the first period because I went to bed after that.
What happened that they played so well but got beat up? Where were my boys, Lemieux and Smitty?
The first period, the Rangers dominated. They had like a 2-minute period of time when it was 5-on-5 that it looked like it was 5-on-3. It was crazy. They were firing pucks and dominating, possessing the puck for 2 straight minutes. One of the guys on Nashville couldn't get off the ice for over 2 minutes. I think it was 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Oh, my.
Then, so it was 1-1, and, I fell apart. I went to bed, and that was it. They fell apart, too.
Well, I saw clips later on, and at one point there were 2 guys beating up on one Ranger who was lying next to the net, and I didn't see anybody do anything about it. And
the NHL refereeing went from bad last year to worse this year. There was a penalty called on, I sent you the clip.
You did. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. There was nobody near around the goalie, except for those 2 guys in the front. All the other players had cleared the zone, and they called interference on that.
I couldn't figure that out for the life of me. Well, hockey has to decide what it wants to do. I like that they call some of these hits more carefully so that the concussion protocol is upheld. But when you let stuff go, like I saw last night, and the Rangers don't respond, you're putting your players in danger. And fortunately, since fighting and hitting is a part of the sport, you've got to answer it. You can't let that go. Otherwise, your skilled players can't play if they got to worry about getting beat up.
That's all on the coach. By the way, what's the story with the Rangers coach's eyes?
Oh, you're talking about. Are you talking about the head coach, or you're talking about the fact that their senior assistant coach? Oh God, whose name escapes me for the moment. One eye blinks and the other one doesn't. That's from a lot of hockey.
No, the head coach.
Oh, he wears contacts probably. He's a little bug.
Strange.
Yeah, he looks like one of those creatures like in a movie who's got like X-ray eyes. He's got those light blue eyes, and I believe he wears contacts. That's what it is. Not as bad as Gase on the Jets, but yeah, he's got a weird look to him. No, Lindy Ruff, if you notice, he's older than I am, but he looks 10 times older. A great coach. He coached 16 years, and I think he has the longevity record in modern times. He coached Buffalo for 16 straight years, the head coach, and he's been the Rangers' assistant ever since. Good coach.
Yeah.
He played.
Hey, Bob, so looking outside the window, I realize why I prefer Aruba.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a mess outside.
This weather is terrible. I've been back for 3 weeks? I can't even remember now. 3 weeks? There's been maybe 1 or 2 days where the outside was the sky was blue and the sun was out.
Hey, but you know what? We don't have snow. There was a time when we just had snow, and we don't get much snow anymore. So that's a good thing, Thomas. No?
Well, it's still only early December, so mid-December. You'll see snow.
Well, I did something in your honor today. We had Edelman on, and I asked him before he left, I have to ask you this. Do you still say he'll resign before he gets voted out or leaves office in 5 years if he's reelected? And he says yes. So we continue to hold him accountable. I can only tell you that.
And he'll deny it when he gets reelected.
No, it's too much. We got it all on tape now. No,
I never said that. He's going to say.
No. We got him. He's he'll have to just eat some humble pie. So when are you getting back to work? You got to sell some houses and get busy.
I worked all weekend over this cold. This is probably why I'm sicker now than I was when I started.
Well, all right, but we just want you to, we want you to stay healthy, and we want you, I need all the listeners that I can get. When you get a chance, check out the story on LoHUD or News 12. I want to get people looking at this. Something just doesn't smell right on this conviction of Pacari. It just doesn't.
All right, Bob, I'll check in. I have a question for you, though.
Yeah, please do.
So I listen to you now on Facebook. Well, actually, I listen and watch.
Handsome, right?
But, oh, my God. I love your sweater today.
Yeah, it's my new sweater. I had a Christmas sweater on yesterday. This is like a snow.
You're not reading your comments. I sent you a comment on Facebook about your sweater yesterday.
I will. No, I got it. Yeah.
Were you going to be in a contest with that sweater from yesterday?
I thought it was. Yeah. Well, the whole point of it was to be silly. It's the Christmas season.
No, I know.
Did you see my Christmas light? Did you see?
You need to put the lights on top of your head with that sweater.
All right, hold on. All right, stay right there. I got the lights. Stay right there. Don't you go anywhere. I got my lights. But I broke a bulb though. And so I have to put the lights on.
You broke a bulb?
And then the problem is that putting the lights on with my headphones, how do they look? But see,
You're going to get electrocuted.
No, I broke a bulb. See, and I gotta glue it back on. I gotta find the switch. Where's the switch? Let me get the switch out. See, you're making me. By the way, did you hear the thing I agreed to do? Did you hear what Jake got me into? I'm going to grow
yes, I heard. That's great.
I'm going to grow a beard, and then I'm going to be... let me fix this.
How long does it take you to grow a beard?
The problem is I don't like the way I look in a beard, but I'll do anything to promote the radio show because it's gray and black, and it won't take long. I've got those Italian genos.
Do you like the way you look without a beard?
Yes. That's the dangerous. I walked into that. No, but you don't, right? Do you like my hat? See,
no.
Look what you've got me to do.
I don't know what you've got me with a beard, but I would leave it alone if I were you.
Oh, let it grow?
Oh, no. Don't grow a beard.
No.
For this thing you're doing, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, but then I'm not going to keep it. Oh, no, it goes off right after the promotion.
Yeah. Stay clean shaved.
No, I like clean shaven. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? When I was younger, I always had a baby face. So when I was younger and I wanted to be taken more seriously in business, I grew a mustache. But then as I got older, I took it off to continue to look younger. Isn't it funny how we manipulate ourselves?
Babyface Marrone.
Babyface Marrone. I need a machine gun. So you like the lights. Are you happy that you have me make a fool of myself across the whole planet now?
Oh, I'm so happy now. I'm feeling better.
See that? Jake, he says he's feeling better, that I look like a fool. I know who that is. That's my name.
Hey, what's the deal with Jake and those pics? Come on, Jake.
Jake, you better get on the phone here. We're going to get to our next guest. You better get on the line. He wants to know what's the deal with you and his picks. He's losing money, Jake. This is Tom from Pelham. Go ahead, Jake.
What's going on, Jake? Come
19 and 17 and 1 on the year. More than decent. Just had a rough 2 and 6 last 2 weeks.
You heard
that guy Dominic told me his business is suffering now.
Well, I'm not allowed there anymore, so I don't know.
Dominic's fine cigars are wilting.
The customers are taking the cigars and they're sticking them into Dominic's eye socket.
You see what you've done? You made a sponsor leave us. Bob, you got to get us someone who's a little better at picking this.
I know. I had to teach myself how to roll my own now.
Tom,
hey, Bob.
Yeah.
So on Facebook, when I'm watching you, If I want to use my phone for something else, I lose you. Why is that?
You want to use? I don't know enough about cell phones. I'll have to ask the experts on that one. We'll figure it out, okay? And we'll get back
All
to
right, we
you.
need some technology. I know you're a tech guy right now.
Oh, please. You should see. Well, you see it in here. I think I got more technology than the space station, so we'll figure out how to do that, okay?
All right, Bob, I got to go gargle now.
Yeah, go. Yeah, well, I got to go and get ready for my shave. All righty. We lose one, we gain another. It's 8:35, actually going to 8:36 right now. It's still 30 degrees across Westchester, but it's 34 here, and that is a good thing. My next guest, and I can't wait to talk to him about the Pocari thing and other things going on in Mount Vernon. He is the editor-in-chief of Black Westchester magazine. Please welcome, and without further ado, welcome A.J. Woodson. Good morning, A.J.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
It is always a pleasure to have you on. And how has the verdict been greeted in Mount Vernon?
Well, two things. Interesting hat. Interesting sweater you had on yesterday.
I hate
what was
you
the
too.
other thing? And to the person who asked about Facebook, which you have to do, because I have to do the same thing. You got to watch it on your computer if you're going to use your phone. Once you go off the Facebook app, it's going to shut. The Facebook app has to be open for you to be able to watch the show. So if you go to do anything else, you're going to lose the show. Facebook is going to close.
Okay, so you see, not only is he a good guest, he's one of my technical advisors. Thank you, Guru. Guru A.J. Woodson. All righty, sir. So, how is this? I have mixed. When I read it, I said, well, if he misrepresented, well, that's fraud, blah, 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 blah. But how has it been received in Mount Vernon? I mean, you got the lawyer was he thinking he was doing the right thing, one says to oneself, or was he just trying to kowtow to the mayor? What say you?
Well, I have mixed feelings over the whole thing. I have mixed feelings that he got indicted and convicted and the mayor didn't, since the money that was used was to pay the mayor's personal legal fees and a publicity company for promotion publicity a publicist.
Yeah, go ahead.
Publicist firm. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, a PR firm, $5,000. Yes.
Now, if Pocari had used this money, I know he got a kid going to college to pay his kids' college, or I know he got health, medical bills, a lot of medical, and he used this stuff for his personal thing, that would be another thing. Because, in government, especially in a government like Mount Vernon, nothing like that gets done without the approval of the mayor. Right. He couldn't have done this without the mayor's blessing. And he went and used, and Richard Thomas, going back to when he was councilman, said on your show and said on my show, one of the things that he complained about Mayor Davis, we have money in other places, we can use it for this and use it for that. He always said that we're not using the money that's available in other places. And he explained that he got all this other money laying around and stuff, and you can use it, but you're not supposed to use it for those reasons. Now, a lot of people have been saying, I've been hearing some people portraying Pocari as a victim. I have a problem with that because of his title is the Corporation Counsel. The job of the Corporation Counsel is to advise the elected officials and the commissioners or whoever on what they can and cannot do in his interpretation of the charter and the law. He is the one with the legal degree. He's the one that knows what's right and what's wrong and what's legal and what's not legal. So to say that he didn't know, that he couldn't do it, it's his job to know.
Well, it's my understanding, and you know the players better than we do here, that they want even to outside counsel, I'm told by sources, to outside counsel to get this, to review this. One name that comes up is a Kessler, I think. I don't know if you know these other people there, but...
They went to outside counsel, to review that, to see if they can do it?
Yeah.
well, then there's no point to have. We've had too much outside counsel, period.
Well, yeah, I would think so. But you got more lawyers in that town than people in the last few years.
I mean, you could, for all the money they paid outside counsel, they could have given everybody in the law department a raise and hired 2 more lawyers. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you did business with Bakari. Did he strike you as someone with ill intention? Did he?
I don't really think. I don't know the man as far as I've heard good things about him, but I don't know him as to talk about his personal morals. He didn't strike me as someone who was like immoral and was just just disregard of the law and just whatever. Well, unfortunately, you do what the mayor wants you to do, or you don't have a job. And for those people that say, well, he had to do it, Robert Kelly didn't have a job anymore because he did not agree with a move or two that the mayor wanted to make, and I have quotes from him. It was immoral, it was illegal, and he was not going to do it. And there were other people like the HR commissioner Rick Poe who quit because he wasn't going to put his integrity on the line, and he wasn't going to risk going to jail. And that's a quote from him. You know what I'm saying? So I would have more respect if you're being forced to do things that are not.
Although, what if Bakari, and I'm saying what if, and that's we weren't in the courtroom, and I'd love to see some transcripts. But if Bakari believed in what he was doing, let's face it, Bakari is in a position now. Had he wanted to use coercion, I mean, he has nothing to lose, but he didn't use that as a defense.
No, you know what? In this situation, Richard Thomas didn't do any jail time. I'm not wishing jail time on him. I'm just saying, for all the things that he was accused of. And a lot of other people did not do jail time. So much is going wrong in Mount Vernon.
That was my position too. Yeah, this poor guy.
Somebody had to go to jail, and he may just be the fall guy. There's always a fall guy. Was he given money to be the fall guy? I mean, we don't know all the particulars behind that. But I heard you talking earlier. I do believe there are more indictments coming. I believe there will be indictments over the next 2 years, probably, from all the stuff that has gone on in this past administration, or longer. Like, I've talked to someone in the AG's office earlier on, and they want a home run. Like, they want to make sure they get everything. And the problem was when they were investigating Richard Thomas, as they were investigating something else, he would do something else, and they would have to add that. He would do something else, and they would have to add that. And that's what took so long in the investigation. They want to make sure they can knock it right out the park when they go into court.
They got Richard to plead guilty, Richard Thomas, and now they have this guy that they've convicted. I think he's going to probably not win ultimately on appeal, but I think he's going to get an appeal. I think he'll probably get another trial. The charges against him were kind of amorphous. I had a hard time understanding what it is he did. Quite frankly, unless it gets down to, and you may have heard me speak with that defense attorney earlier, unless it gets down to the paperwork that he submitted to the head of the water department was misleading, well, then that's fraud, and they got him. But that's the one part of it I understand. Now, the other part is, and you know how I feel about this, that the fact that perhaps, and we don't know, and one day maybe we will, that if it's true that the controller wasn't paying bills and it was an open secret, as you know, and the mayor doesn't deny it, that he was using water department money to pay other bills, if this indeed is a legitimate bill, why not that one too, goes the logic.
Well, I mean, one of her arguments, she had a town hall style meeting in the city council chambers, and one of the things that she said in her defense, and I just seen her recently, and I got her card, and I told her we're going to sit down. She's agreed to.
I would love to see that.
We haven't set a date yet, but we're supposed to be setting up an interview. But one of the things she said then was, when he said she wasn't paying bills, she said she refused to pay his personal legal fees. Now, these are not these, in these situations, you're accused as
well, that's our job. Yeah, sure.
Right. So this money went to pay his personal legal fees.
Yes, but I think I think the analogy they made, and I'm not saying it's so. I don't know enough about the law. Was that in New York City in a similar case they paid the legal fee? I think this is what Porcari used to justify it. In New York City, they paid De Blasio's legal bills. So why not in Mount Vernon?
Because we can say things happen different places. Like, as you know, Mount Vernon and New Rochelle run differently. You have a city manager.
Yes.
You can't say because they did it in New Rochelle.
No, I know. I'm just telling you that was. I think that was the justification that Porcari used.
Mount Vernon has a charter.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's like.
Well, they would say that they were consistent with the charter, but that remains to be seen. And obviously, it wasn't consistent with the charter because they convicted him.
But the problem with the charter, let me just say this. The problem with the charter is most people do not know the charter. Most people have not fully read the charter. And it's just like I've often joked in church on Sundays, the pastor can read a biblical verse, and if you ask 10 people what it means, you'll get 10 different responses.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, interpretation. We don't teach civics. And a lot of people don't know, a lot of people do not want to read through 83 or 100 and something pages of, just of charter type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will never sit through it. And even some of our elected officials do not know the charter, that they take an oath to defend,
mm-hmm.
because the controller said she was doing stuff to defending the charter. The mayor said he was doing stuff defending the charter. The council said they were doing stuff defending the charter. Now, if they were all doing three different things, they all can't be right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, yeah, and that's the thing. And I know there was this commission to change the charter and blah blah blah.
Well, the charter is outdated. The charter needs great revisions. There is a committee to do revisions on the charter. They somehow missed. I guess they didn't get the paperwork in time to get it onto the ballot. The things they wanted, the people to vote for it. So you might see that again in 2020 because they weren't able to get it on the ballot in 2019. What Richard Thomas did though, he actually exposed the loopholes in the charter. He
Mm-hmm.
exposed several loopholes in the charter, and some of those need to be tightened up a little bit.
Wow, I would say so. Now, you mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to this, but first, my guest is A.J. Woodson, covers the city of Mount Vernon better than anyone else. He is the the editor-in-chief. I like his title. The editor-in-chief of Black Westchester Magazine, a regular on our broadcast, his paper online and in paper. And in newsprint. Also, his show every Sunday night, People Before Politics. Going back to this, you think that they are going to continue investigations into the city, the previous administration, and even perhaps administrations before that, depending on where the stories lead?
I believe that there are ongoing investigations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple that I was told about that I haven't heard anything about yet. Any closed or anybody being indicted yet. I think that there's going to be several more indictments. I think you might see some more indictments. I'm hearing some possibilities, some more indictments in the police department on the overtime situation.
Yeah,
I think there's a couple other people that I've just heard names, and I don't have no confirmation, so I don't want to put their names out. That may be either they just got indicted or they're just about to get indicted. I think a lot more is going to come out. And if the mayor-elect is true to her word, she's going to go through everything. And there may be more indictments to come up from her, from what she discovers. Because one thing that Mayor Wallace said when he was city councilman, he complained about a lot of things. Richard Thomas said this too, but when he became mayor, he had access to information that he didn't have access to in the council.
Mm-hmm.
So Sean Patterson Howard was going to have a whole set of access that she's never had before.
Mm-hmm.
And when she, who knows, there can be some indictments that come from that, from whatever she discovers. So
well, as well.
I believe over the next 2 years you're going to see indictments, yes. As
well, she has. Now, Richard Thomas, the former mayor, was saying he tried to get those audits done but couldn't get the money for them. She didn't necessarily dispute that. She questioned that, if that was so, but she says she's had no trouble getting the money to finish those audits. And there's like 3 or 4 years of audits to be done on the departments that are under the purview of the mayor as opposed to the controller. So that's going to be very interesting.
Well, I heard from various council members, and I've heard Andre Wallace when he was council as well, but from various other councilmen that they had approved when Richard Thomas was saying that they didn't have money to do whatever, that they had approved the money to finish the audits, and they still weren't done. Like, the money was approved, he just had to do it.
Well, he said, now naturally, if I recall, again, I can't recall every conversation, there was one point where he either wanted to use a different auditor or that he couldn't get the money. But see, that's all going to come out in the wash. I expect that, and that's where the controller comes in and the board of estimate comes in. Either the money was there or not. Either he authorized it or he didn't. And that's all going to come out sooner or later, and whatever the details of the audit itself, the audits themselves, obviously you've got the people that run those departments, you've got the controller, you've got the city council, you've got the former mayors. That's going to be very interesting stuff when those audits are completed.
Now, here's something that you're not hearing about yet, and I'm looking into this. Money was approved for 3 new fire trucks. The first one have been brought, and I'm hearing rumblings similar to what we've heard from prior mayors.
Yes.
That the controller will not authorize the payment for these new fire trucks. They're there, they're ready, it's going to be paid for, the money has been approved. I don't know. I have not had a chance to thoroughly look into it to say that this is the fact, but I heard as late as last night, I was told that she just hasn't paid for it, but the money has been approved.
Well, she must have I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt here because so far no one's pointing fingers at her. She says the bills she didn't pay were because they either weren't documented or they were for personal use. She's an elected official, but one of the things she or any other elected official has to be held accountable because it's the public's money of explaining her decisions. She has to do that.
Well, from what I'm understanding, everything was approved. It's just a matter of her signing off.
Maybe there's no money.
She signed off on one, and there's 2 more brand new fire trucks, which is sorely needed, which is something Richard Thomas is also trying to get.
Yeah, see, this goes back to when I used to defend one aspect of the mayor's behavior, which was, or at least of his criticisms. Perhaps the money's not there. How would he know if she can't see the books? How will Sean Patterson Howard know? In other words, when Sean takes the oath in a couple of weeks, and she says, "Why don't you pay for my fire truck?" and she doesn't get an answer, and she says, "Well, how much money do we have?" She's got a right to know. And
well, the council also have a right to know, and should have access.
Yeah,
because they have to
of course
vote on it. They have to vote on it for the money to be spent.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. See, I don't understand how a controller has so much veto power and without explanation. It's unheard of. But
well, it may get more interesting in 2021 if Richard Thomas does run for controller.
Yeah, that's right. You've heard that rumor he wants to run. Well, he's got to get out of the woods and just relax now and move on.
Well, I mean, he has nothing holding him back.
Right.
He just can't. He can't run for a year, which was a very weak statement in the AG's in the charge. I mean, in the conviction, in the plea deal, because there is no election next year. So, I mean, like, for you to tell me I can't do something that I couldn't do anyway. How is that a punishment?
Well, yeah, but you know what? They don't. Yeah, I get that, but I think what they just do is they set down these are the laws, so he can't run. It should be interesting, though. If he actually comes back to politics, it's a great question. Your interview with Ms. Reynolds, whenever that is, I may go and watch it in person. You just tell me when it is, or certainly we'll listen on the radio.
Well, I'm going to try to get her on the show because, like you, it's video, it streams live, and it's the best way to do it and make it available to everybody. But if I have to go to her office,
I do it too. I would go wherever she asked me to. I would respect her position, and if she says no, do it in my office. But bring a tape recorder and so that you get it right.
Well, yeah, I would definitely like to get video as well as audio. I want people to see because I don't want to do is put a loose transcript. I said, she said, I said, she said, because that's you reading. It's so much you can't argue when you hear the words come out of her mouth or you actually watch her say the words. That's what the residents at this point really need to see and hear. Hey, not just to read some words.
Hey, do we know what Andre's going to do next? Andre Wallace, Mayor Wallace?
I don't know. I know I went to, they had an appreciation celebration for him last night at the Steam House. Mm-hmm. I caught part of that. And it was, I heard, the new city councilman, Councilman-elect Derek Thompson was there. Wasn't a lot of elected officials, but it was, key people in the community, some, black clergy and some other people. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of appreciation for what he did in the short period of time. I think what he did, if nothing else, he has upped the bar. And what I mean by that, if Richard Thomas had stayed in office and, things were going the way they were going, when she got in, people were already complaining that things were wrong. Anything she did would have been a great thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
well, he added a lot of stability, I understand, Mayor Wallace.
Right, in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some aspects, he did more in 3.5 months, did some stuff that Richard Thomas wasn't able to do in 3.5 years. And, he got things. I think there's going to be a smoother transition and that Mayor-elect Sean Patterson, how it is going to receive the city in better shape.
I only sensed one, when I say rift, a difference of opinion was what it was. Her concern about, again, the aforesaid audits is that her, if I quoted her right, and again, I'm quoting from memory now, is that I think she disagreed with the notion that the books were closed on those accounts because she said you can't close books until you audit them. So,
right. Well, I mean, regardless of what you get, if it was me, I would comb through everything anyway.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like just for my personal knowledge, and just to be able to speak intelligently about everything and just catch anything that fell through the cracks. You know what I'm saying? So
yes, she's going to be in a better place to be able to do that. Hey, wanted to ask you about one more story before you go. The police officer who got fired for body slamming that person, is he going to appeal? Is the union there for him, or is that all over?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. I'm following that. We just had the other officer. I don't know if you saw on our show, not this Sunday, last Sunday, the one who supposedly was being retaliated for calling out corruption in the department.
Yes.
He came and told his story last week, and you can still see that on blackwestchester.com or on my Facebook page. And some of the things he said were very disturbing, including having an officer work with a drug dealer. The drug dealer would sell the drugs to, say, a guy in a red shirt. Mm-hmm. The drug dealer would call the guy, and the cops, and say, okay, I sold to the guy in the red shirt, picked him up. They would pick up the guy in the red shirt and let the drug dealer keep the money.
Why?
And he said a lot of this. He had a lot more than that to say. A lot of disturbing stuff that half of this stuff turns out to be true. We have a lot more problems in the department.
Yeah.
And I encouraged him because there's such a system of retaliation. People are watching. There's other people that want to speak up, but they see what he has gone through, and why would they want to put themselves through that? So I want to see what comes of his situation, because we need those in blue who see those things that are wrong to actually speak up for them to be fixed, because we won't know. And, we're not inside. We don't see a lot of that.
And that's right out of the movie Training Day. Yeah, don't worry, we're gonna, you got to be. Remember when Denzel says you got to be a wolf to catch a wolf? Wow.
Yeah, yes.
It's a great movie.
I mean, he was talking about a lot of things that were very disturbing. I mean, it was a very interesting.
Well, I can tell you that Sean Patterson Howard said on these very microphones and she used the word criminality, that she intends to look into quote unquote criminality in the police department. Those are strong words coming from a new mayor.
That's a word I use a lot instead of police brutality, police criminality, because it's criminals. Some of the things that are being done. It's not. It was beyond brutality. The killing of unarmed. People and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's beyond brutality. We've used that since we've been in existence. Police criminality a lot too. I wish Mayor-elect Sean Patterson Howard the best. I know because of the way the race was run and how hectic it was and somewhat dirty at some points. A lot of promises. I just hope that, unlike the last election, promises made will be promises kept. I know you can't. There's no way when you say what you're going to do and you're not in a position. There's some stuff you can't do, and you don't have. You're not going. It's not going to be that easy. You get in there and you find that out. But I hope that. My point is, Richard Thomas was hope for a lot of people who had lost hope and then did not deliver on the hope. And now, some of them people ain't never going to vote again.
What's that line? And it's probably a good place to end. Hope springs eternal in the human heart, my friend. A.J. Woodson, editor-in-chief, Black Westchester Magazine. As you can see, he has his finger on the pulse of Mount Vernon. Thank you so very much.
All right. Hey, can I ask a question?
Sure.
To Jake, is this was that Eli's last game?
Yeah, let's get Jake on the mic. Jake, you're being summoned. This is a good question, Jake. AJ wants to know, do you think it's Eli's last game if what's his first isn't hurt, if Jones isn't hurt?
Oh, I think it matters it depends on if he wants to retire as a Giant, as a lifetime Giant. That I'm not sure about.
What do you think, AJ?
I don't know, because the way that the media played it up, because I didn't see the game, and then I'm seeing shirts already, and I'm seeing all of this stuff. So his family was, everybody was in the tunnel and everything. You don't usually do that for a regular game, So I'm just eager to see that. As I know Jake is more, pays more attention to what's going on in the NFL than I have been lately. That's why I was asking.
Yeah,
I thought he was auditioning for another job, but I've heard that a lot of people think that he wants to retire as a lifetime Giant. He certainly has all the money he'll ever need. So I'm 50-50. I really don't know.
For legacy, I hope he does, because I would hate to see him. I'm not saying that he doesn't still have it, but I would hate to see him go somewhere else and then have a failed season. And that's what that's the end of his legacy. Two Super Bowl MVPs. He was a comeback kid. Of course, he got himself in some of those droughts that he had to get himself out of, but for his interceptions. But he had an impressive career.
Yeah, he
and
did.
I really would like to see him end on a positive note. And I heard that was a good game Sunday.
It was a good game. Yeah, it was fun. Well, now Brett Favre, I know he had a decent year for the Jets, but in the end, it didn't hurt his legacy much to have a bad season.
He didn't embarrass himself.
What?
He didn't embarrass himself.
No, but he wasn't what he was.
The only idea I have for Eli besides retirement is going to a team like the Bears, a team with a really strong defense and a team that is ready.
That. He has to be protected. Yes.
That would give him a chance, that he wouldn't have to be the star. He could still, manage the game, depend on the defense, and, maybe go to another Super Bowl.
Let me add a third, less educated position. I think that Eli will quit because I think even one more year, what's one more year and another $10 million, which is probably all you get this time, when you have such a perfect ribbon and a bow career as a New York Giant?
That's what,
I think it would be smart, and he can follow his brother's recipe of all the stuff he's doing, endorsements and stuff afterwards. I mean, Peyton got a great life, you know. I mean, commercials and all that other stuff. So, who knows?
I'm glad you went to sports a little bit. Let me ask you something, and I want you to have fun with this. What would you do if you signed a contract for $365 million? I mean, I can't even get my head around the number.
What would I do?
I mean, with all that.
What would I do now? What would I do when I was 20 or that age? What I would do now, I would invest incredibly into my kids' future and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be thinking that if I was 25. My mind wasn't thinking in stuff like that. But I would have fun.
Yeah, me too. I've already
the rest of my day, I would have fun for the rest of my days. I would have fun. My family would be straight.
Well taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, but I'll be able to pass on wealth, but and teach them, what to do with it and stuff like that. Not just they just get money. You know what I'm saying? So that they
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I've always said that if I made the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball, and hockey to begin with, I'd be dead already. So I'd be. Oh my goodness!
And I would invest.
Yeah, me too.
Invest in a bunch of these new companies. If one of them go big, you good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you're good anyway with 365. Me, I'd buy an American Hockey League team. I'd run that because you can't buy an NFL. You can't buy a Major League team with only $300 million. Although a Magic invested in the and Jordan invested in teams, but I would buy a AAA hockey team and I would take care of my family and wow. And
yeah, I would do something for the game, like like you said, a AAA team or something that prepares people better for the league.
Yep.
Because you take a lot of these kids from the hood, so to speak, with no money and no understanding of money, and now they're known everywhere. They got cameras chasing them everywhere. They got more money than they ever had in their life, and there's a transition that you have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prepare somebody. They don't prepare them. They just use them up, and then they go to the next person, and they find the next talented guy. And a lot of these guys end up with no money. I would do something for the game.
That is nice. What about you, Jake?
I would invest in a local radio station and a local newspaper.
Well, I'm already doing that one.
I would. That goes without saying. I mean, that's what I'm doing now with no money. Imagine if I had money.
Well, one of my favorite, as you know, I love the Honeymooners, and Ralph says it best. No, his wife says it best in one of the episodes. He says, "Alice, you don't know how to handle money." She says, "Of course I don't. I never had any."
Yes.
Hey, AJ, thank you very much. AJ Woodson, Editor-in-Chief, Black Westchester Magazine. Thank you so much for all your time today. And
absolutely.
Keep doing what you do.
Thank you very much. You too, sir.
All right, take care. AJ Woodson, what a good man. Thank you so much. All right, we're leaving early today. We've got other business to tend to, and Jack Breslin has been called away. So we're going to deal with some of our other matters. So thank you for listening to Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. We're going to take a last look at the weather, brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. We were supported today also by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic Cigars, who are telling us if Jake doesn't do a better job, they're going to sponsor somebody else to do the picks. Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. Now, one of the things we'll do for them to keep them as a sponsor, we'll change their handle and we'll say, Dominic's Fine Cigars. We do bring you Jake's football picks, but be assured our cigars are better than his picks. Jake Safer, great job today. Vince, thank you. Anthony, thank you for your call. Mike Edelman, Mike Duffy, the Mikes. Dell didn't show up, but that happens. AJ Woodson, great job. And for the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow. Jake and I have a lot of sales and other things like that to do today, and that begins right now. Thank you so much for listening.